And then we're going to have a brainstorming session on story ideas per region and on what stories that we'd want to tell around Agenda 2040. So as I want to mention right now, we have a small budget to support 10 journalists to do stories around Agenda 2040. So with no further ado, I want to welcome Felicitas to do an introductory remarks and also give us the objective of the training. Felicitas?
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Let's see if I'm visible. Thank you so much. I'm also in a physical meeting, so I've gone out to be part of this meeting. So you might
recording in progress.
My seating arrangement might not be the best right now. But having said that, colleagues, thank you so much for being part of this training and for having shown interest, particularly around addressing issues of children. We welcome you to the training and we hope that we can have engagements, particularly once the Agenda 2040 and the Charter conversations have started through the presenters that are going to be talking after me. This is a workshop or a training that is coming ahead of the Day of the African Child commemoration that we are going to be having on the 16th of July. And as we all know, this year's theme is centered around Agenda 2040, just to appreciate where we are with the Agenda 2040, as well as perhaps reflect on what the challenges are and how best we could address that from the different stakeholders that are part of the fulfillment of children's rights. But maybe you might wonder why we felt that we needed to be speaking to you as journalists today. One of the reasons we needed you to be part of those conversations and perhaps part of the African Child's commemoration this year is that we view you as the media as an ally in changing people's mindsets, in changing people's attitudes through information dissemination. We also view you, the media, as an advocacy tool in terms of holding duty bearers accountable, but also in terms of nudging stakeholders in the right direction so that they are also accountable. But also for us as the child sector, we also feel that it's important that we collaborate and partner with yourselves as the media so that we can equally monitor how rights violations are reported in the media, the type of language that you use, and perhaps the articles that you write or the news that you do publish in your different media outlets. We also feel that perhaps we need to also partner with yourselves so that there can be an understanding that the media has a comparative advantage where we want to ensure that human rights should not be seen as just legal rights, that human rights should be seen as issues that impact on a country's development, that as long as we don't have children's rights protected, respected, or fulfilled in any country, it hampers that country's development. We also feel that you do have a comparative advantage as the media because you are able to inform government officials and other citizens of every country about issues that are existing, and in this instance, it will be issues around children. You are able to create demand in terms of accountability. But also as the media, you have a comparative advantage in the sense you are able to translate science, you are able to translate medicine, you are able to translate human rights to help consumers, your readers or your listeners, to make better choices regarding regarding children's issues or children's rights. And that in itself is an awareness raising campaign, and it can decrease rights violations insofar as children are concerned. But also as the media, you have a comparative advantage in the sense that you are able to uncover problems, you are able to give affected communities, in this instance children, a voice to allow others who are not necessarily the affected community to enact change. This is where I spoke about change of mindsets and change of attitudes. And we feel that we are able to do that by unearthing these problems. But we also, as partners here, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, Civil Society Forum, as well as Plan International, feel that as journalists, you have the power to determine what news is and to construct stories and select words in ways that affect people. So if you are reporting positively, there are bound to be positive feelings and attitudes and mindsets from your readers and from your listeners in relation to the news or the stories that you publish or that you carry out in your media outlets. But you are also able to carry the ability to inform the public, to shape person's view of the world that they live in. Many a times we are consumers of news, and we behave and think in the way that you would have shaped us as the media. And in those shaping, if we maintain it to be a positive one, particularly in relation to children, it might help us a great deal. We also do feel that you have an opportunity to educate the public on their rights and responsibilities, as well as in monitoring human rights violations. And in this instance, it will be educating the public on their roles and responsibilities towards children, as well as monitoring human rights violations insofar as children are concerned. But we also do feel that as the media, you really do have an opportunity to increase awareness that can lead to stronger civil society and a more active population where there is a sense of urgency from those that are rights holders. So basically, we view you as an ally, we view you as a partner, and it is important for us that as we go towards the commemoration of the Day of the African Child, that you are carrying us with you, we are carrying you along, so that you are part of those commemoration, that you are part of educating the public, that you are part of awareness raising, that you are part of monitoring children's rights and the violations therein. So thank you very much. And this is why we are here today. We feel that this will be existence so far as immersing yourselves in the subject matter, but also developing interest in reporting around issues of children. So you're welcome once again, and we hope that you will have fun. And we're also hopeful that we'll get many exciting stories post this webinar. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Felicitas. And team, thank you for those who are joining in. I'll be increasing in numbers. And I hope please remind your friends who are supposed to join in, because now we're getting into the meat of the training. So I'm going to invite Selam. Selam is a project manager at Plan African Union Liaison Office, who is going to introduce us to what is the African Charter on the Rights of the Welfare of the Child, what is the African Committee, what is Agenda 2040, because some of us, we hear these terms and we don't know who they are, what they are. And after that, we're going to have an interactive session with Selam and the rest of the team on just to understand more about this concept and who these people are. Unfortunately, we're supposed to have a committee member, but they just landed, so they say they're too tired to join a meeting. So, Selam, so the session is yours.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and also Felicitas for the introduction. and also acquainting participants on the aim and objective of the meeting. As Jenny mentioned, my name is Salam. I work at Plan International African Union Liaison Office based in Addis, where the AU headquarters is also based. So I'm very happy to join in this training or workshop in discussing along with journalists on the different aspects of the works of the committee and specifically the Agenda 2014. I know there have been many discussions and also points here and there on what the committee is on the charter and also on the agenda, but it will give us like a very good opportunity to see what the works of the committee are, and also delve into more specifically on Agenda 2040 as for the session that we have today. I also second what Felicitas have mentioned on the big role that journalists play in making sure that and also communicating to the wider public that the rights of children and girls are protected, and also promoting different instruments and also works that are being done at the national level, at the regional level, and also at the AU level with regards to child rights protection and promotion. And we also believe that it's high time, it's a good time that we have this training ahead of the Day of the African Child, which will be commemorated on the 16th of June. So well done to the organizing committee. Jenny, congratulations in ensuring that we have this training on a timely basis. So what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at briefly on what the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child mean. And also we go into Agenda 2040 and look at the different aspects that are constituted in the agenda. So I will be sharing my screen so that we can also see a bit of the presentation. Hope I can share. Okay, Jenny, can you please allow me to share a screen? Hi, Jenny.
Try now.
Yes, perfect. Okay, I think it's visible now, right?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, perfect. So we're going to start with the acronym. So some of you might have seen like this acronym and also in some conversation or discussion, like what we usually like those people like working on the child sector, we call them the committee. So the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, it's one treaty body or organ of the African Union. So the African Union, as you might know, it's a membership organization which comprised of the 55 member states of the Africa. So this is an organization or an institution that works as a secretariat to do the the establishment of the Pan-African Dream, and also works toward the different aspects that affect the development of Africa, more specifically on different aspects. So in order to work on the different aspects, there are different organs, departments instituted within the African Union, specifically focusing on some aspects. So as a treaty body or as one organ of the African Union, the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child draws its mandate from the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. So the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, it was adopted by what we call back then the Organization of the African Union, before it was transformed to the African Union. So back then it was adopted by 1990, but it came to force after 9 years, which is on the year of the 1999. So the establishment of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of a Child draws its mandate from the articles that are included in the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of a Child, from Article 32 to 46. The Charter provides for the establishment of the committee, which consists of 11 members. So this committee members are members that have different works, that have different responsibilities, that have different functions in different government bodies, but they also work as a member of the committee to ensure that the rights and welfare of a child is given attention and consideration at the AU level. So these 11 members, they have a mandate for 5 years, which is also renewable. So if we say this about the mandate and structure of the committee, we can look into like who are the committee a bit later on, but we also have what constitutes the bureau of the committee, which kind of follows up on the day-to-day activities and also past decisions on the works of the committee. So these 5 members, 4 members constitute the bureau of the committee. One is the chairperson, currently Honorable Joseph. Second vice person, Honorable Aissatou. And we also have a rapporteur, Honorable Kambo, and also we have second rapporteur, Honorable Maria. So this, they meet the committee member. They meet biannually, usually around the time of November and also April, to look into the situation of child rights in Africa, look into different state party reports, look into different CSO reports, and also pass on some critical message or an outcome document out of the meeting. I'm sure Evelyn will come back a bit later on the reporting aspects. So this constitutes what the bureau of the committee means. So in general, like the committee of experts, they have a function, they have different functions. The main function, as we see it from the outset, of course, it's the protection and promotion of child rights in Africa. So given this broader mandate, they also have responsibility to promote and protect the specific rights enshrined in the Charter, in the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Aside from that, the committee also has the responsibility to monitor the implementation and also ensure the protection of the rights enshrined in the Charter. So there are different rights enshrined in the charter. There is a right to life, there is a right to peace, the right to education, the right to access to basic health, and different rights that are enshrined in the charter, and also the rights of the child. So the committee had the mandate to monitor these rights, its implementation, follow up on the implementation on different member states, receive reports, and also assess the different works that are being done by member states of the African Union. It also has some quasi-judicial aspects when we talk about the committee. This is to interpret the provisions of the charter. So there are different provisions within the charter that are open to interpretation. So the committee also have the legal mandate and also responsibility to interpret some of the big language or how do you call articles within the charter that are open to different interpretation. So this is also one mandate of the or function of the committee. And also as a secretariat, not as a secretariat, but as the committee, they also perform other tasks that might be entrusted to it by the Assembly of Heads of State of the AU. So the Assembly of the Heads of State of the AU comprised of presidents or prime ministers of the members within the African Union. So they pass different decisions, different follow-up questions, different recommendations regarding different aspects, like in a wider range, like it talks about peace and security, development, gender issues, and a lot more other. So the committee, they also perform some tasks that might come out of the Assembly of the Heads of State meeting that are relevant or pertinent to the rights of the child in Africa. So these are some of the basic functions of the African Committee of Experts on the rights and welfare of the child. So here I might be showing you who the committee are, because it would be good to put faces to the people that we are talking about. So I'll be sharing from the committee website the members of the committee. Yes, because one of the things that we should also integrate is like in doing any sorts of advocacy or media reporting. It would be good to put faces to the description that we are talking about, because we have been saying like the committee of experts. So it will also be good to see them so that it allows us to know what we are talking about. And also some of you might know these personalities. So it will be easier for anyone of us to approach them and also talk to them individually or in a group or in any occasions, like regarding the rights of children. So these are the committee members, as you can see from my screen. We have 11, as I've tried to mention. We have Honorable Abu Bakrin Al-Jira, who's a member of the committee, but also working as a special rapporteur on health, welfare, and development. And they also have a country-specific rapporteur. Each committee of experts, they have country rapporteur for specific countries. So you can log into the committee website and also look for the details. We have Honorable Anne Muswa, who's also a member of committee, working as a special rapporteur on parental responsibility and child responsibility. We have Honorable Aver, who's also a member of the committee, working as a special rapporteur on violence against children. We have Honorable Campbell, who's also acting within the Bureau of the Committee as rapporteur, and also working as a special rapporteur on child marriage and other harmful practices. And we have the chair, Honorable Joseph, who also work as a special rapporteur on children on the move. We have Honorable Choramun, working as a special rapporteur on the rights to name, birth registration, and nationality. We have the Honorable Tata, working as a special rapporteur on the rights to education. We have Honorable Robert, working as special rapporteur on child in armed conflict. And also Honorable Sidiku, working as a second vice chair, but also a special rapporteur on child participation. The remaining two committee members, Honorable Nikiema and also Honorable Wilson, each working as a special rapporteur on children in conflict with the law and also special rapporteur on children in vulnerable situation. So I've just quickly run through it so that you can also go into the committee website. I can share the presentation later on so that you can see the link and look into the committee members so that it can be also easy for us to do any sort of advocacy, or if you want to develop a story and want to interview one of the committee members and so on. So back to the presentation. So these are the committee members. And in order to facilitate the day-to-day functions of the 11 committee members, we have what we call the Secretariat. The Secretariat was based in Addis within the Department of Social Affairs, but now it moved to Lesotho after the institutional reform that had happened at the African Union. So we can take it as, for instance, Addis, we work or the day-to-day follow-up of the what we call the institution of the AU, or follow-up of what's happening at the member state level. And for the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, we have what we call the Secretariat, which also does, as we can call them, the legwork or the day-to-day implementation, follow-up of the works of the committee. I can also share, I think, who in the committee we have, so that it can also give us a bit of okay. Yes. So it's not a big stuff that they have. So this is what we also call the Secretariat. We have different people working also in this at the Secretariat. It's now based in Lesotho. They recently moved. So colleagues in the Southern Africa region, I think now it's easier to get in touch and communicate with the Secretariat as well. We have this officers and also staffs working within the Secretariat of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. So just want to show you the faces so that we also see like who's behind the day-to-day implementation and the works of the committee. So if we say this, let's go back to the presentation. So this is in a nutshell what the African Committee of Experts experts on the rights and welfare of a child. It's where its mandate was drawn, and also what do we mean by the committees, the secretariat, and how the overall functions are happening at the AU level. Then we come to Agenda 2040. So when we talk about Agenda 2040, there are different aspects that we take into consideration. So looking at the background, the Agenda 2040 took some of its aspects from the bigger agenda of the African Union, which is called the Agenda 2063. So it's against this background that the African Agenda for Children came into force. If we look at the Agenda 2063 and specific paragraphs, it talks about the empowerment of African children, and also one of its aspirations also specifically focus on the rights of the African child, and also the implementation of the African Charter on the rights of the child. So this is a 50-year agenda, the Agenda 2063, the AU Agenda 2063 is a 50-year agenda. So based on that, there were different strategic plans, agendas, different agendas specific to the specific thematic areas, and also strategic direction roadmaps have been developed by different organs of the African Union, and also different departments. Also drawing its aspects from the bigger Agenda 2063. In 2016, the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of a Child established a 25-year agenda, which we are going to see it now, which is called the Agenda 2040, fostering an Africa fit for children. So this is also a word or a phrase that we use in commemorating the African Day of a Child. What do we mean by fostering an Africa fit for children? So it comprises of different aspects, different rights enshrined in the Charter, different objectives that needs to be attained, different targets and goals that needs to be attained in the Agenda 2040. Okay, so this came into force in 2016, and also some of the aspects of this agenda is informed and also built on numerous existing legal and policy frameworks. So I've mentioned the Agenda 2063 as a bigger document, but there are also different documents that were taken into consideration that were adopted before the Agenda 2040. We have different declarations like the Abuja Declaration, the Africa Fit for Children Declaration, and also a plan of action. We also have the social policy framework, the AU social policy framework. We have at the international level, we have the SDGs and also before that, the Millennium Development Goals. And also different reports and analysis points that were taken from development partners like UNICEF, African Child Policy Forum, and so on. So taking this into consideration was developed, the Agenda 2040 was developed. So the agenda has 10 aspirations. I know like it would be very difficult for us to discuss in detail all these 10 aspirations within the limited time that we have, but it would be good to know like what are the 10 aspirations that are included in the Agenda 2040. So the goal of the agenda is also, as the name indicates, by 2040, the rights of African children are firmly protected, with full effect being given to the priorities in this agenda. So when we say priorities, look, there are different aspirations mentioned in this agenda. We are looking at by 2040, we will have like a full effect of those rights enshrined in the agenda. So as with the content, as I've tried to mention, it has 10 aspirations with objective, aim, and also action plans, different action plans, including the role of member states, the committee, the AU, and the CSO for the civil society organizations working on child rights. So I'll be sharing all the documents after the presentation so that you can also read them through and familiarize yourself on the different aspects. But for the purpose of this training, I'll be going through the aspirations so that we also familiarize ourselves on the different aspirations that are mentioned in the Agenda 2040. Okay. So we start from the first aspiration, which talks about the, I can read it from the aspiration itself, the African Children's Charter, supervised by the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of a Child, provides an effective continental framework for advocacy, for advancing children's rights. I think there was something missing there, sorry, children's rights. So what do we mean by this specific aspiration is talks about the effective domestication and implementation of the charter. We have the charter that was put into force in the year 1999. And since then, there has been different engagement by the Committee of Experts during their biannual meeting. There is a reporting mechanism, which my colleagues later on will touch on. So this reporting mechanism, it allows member states to report on the protection and promotion of child rights in their country. And it also allows civil society organizations to come in and complement the state party reports that has been given to the committee. And also based on that, the committee will come up with a concluding observation on the specific situation on that specific country. When we look at the first aspiration, it talks about the continental framework, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of a Child, for its effective and domestication and also implementation of the charter by the member states. Okay, so the second aspiration looks at what we call effective child-friendly national legislative policy and institutional framework in place in all member states. So it's not only, we are not only looking at policy frameworks or agendas or charters that can be signed and somehow put in a shelf, but we also look for member states legislating policies and frameworks that kind of tallies and aligns with the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of a Child. We have this continental charter on child rights, but we also need national legislations and also institutions in place that can support the charter. So this is also one of the aspirations that the Agenda 2040 wants to see by 2040. The third aspiration talks about the importance of childbirth and also other vital statistics, the registration of childbirth and also other vital statistics. So when we say this, like we are looking at the importance of data because in any advocacy work or promotion and protection of child rights that we work on in Africa, we need to have like the data in hand. So in order to do that, one of the areas that that the agenda wants to emphasize was on the importance and also the importance of birth registration. So it calls on the universal, compulsory, and free birth registration, which is also effective and accessible. So by one hand, it also is a right for a child for registration, but on the other hand, it also gives like stakeholders the vision and also the way forward on some of the aspects on registration. The aspiration number 4 talks about we can call them as a right to survival and also having a healthy childhood. So children in Africa should not die of preventable diseases. So we have like the agenda looked into different diseases that are prevalent in Africa, like HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, and of course, like through time and change, like different diseases also come. So currently we have the COVID-19 pandemic, for instance. So it looks at the different dynamics for every child survival and to have for every child to have a healthy childhood. So it talks about also the aspects of vaccinations, the need to ensure that children are vaccinated. So this is the 4 aspiration. The next aspiration, which is aspiration number 5, talks about nutrition aspects. So talks about every child grows up well nourished and with access to the basic necessities of life. So it has some aspects of the eradication of poverty and looking at the different dimensions and also aspects that bring poverty in. Talks about like every child needs to grow up in a well-nourished environment and also with basic access to life, nutrition, and also some other aspects. So that is the 5th aspiration. Aspiration number 6 talks about quality education. So there have been different engagements and also aspects that were given into consideration in making sure that every child have access to education. But if you see closely onto this aspiration, it's not saying access to education, but also quality education. So by 2040, the Agenda 2040, it has put as one aspiration to see every child benefiting out of quality education. So we also look into aspects of gender equity, because when we talk about education, we also see some aspects in member states where girls are not going to school due to different factors. So it also sees on that aspects on ensuring that there is gender equity in coming up with a quality education and also having access to quality education. Aspiration number 7 talks about every child is protected against violence, exploitation, neglect, and abuse. So this is an aspiration that have different dimensions because it talks about one, the violence aspect, but also some other aspects that are taken as exploitation and neglect and abuse with children. So when we talk about prevention from any violence, it includes also gender-based violence. It includes also harmful traditional practices, including female genital mutilation. It talks about child labor. It also talks about child trafficking. So the aspiration that was put in this specific aspiration number 7 is every child is protected against this, what we call in some violence. Aspiration number 8, we have children benefit from a child-sensitive criminal justice system. So this has been discussion with different actors and also stakeholders on what we mean by child-sensitive criminal justice system. Different member states within the African Union have their own criminal justice system, which takes into consideration different factors when they set up the criminal justice system in their criminal law. But the main aspiration that needs to be reflected in this Agenda 2040 is one with regards to minimum age for criminal responsibility. So we are looking at a minimum age for criminal responsibility in all member states to be set at 12. So this is one of the aspirations that we as an Africa wants to achieve. And also it has also some aspects of juvenile administration. How do we ensure that juvenile, like children in conflict with the law or children in prison are protected, and also their rights is protected and also treated in a child-friendly and in a fair manner. So these are some of the aspects that are included in this aspiration number 8, which talks about children benefit from a child-sensitive criminal justice system. So it talks about witness protection, it talks about different aspects. Aspiration number 9 is about armed conflict. We aspire to see every child living in a free environment, which is free from the impact of armed conflict. So there have been also different works that are being done by the committee and also in collaboration with Plan International and also Save the Children on children affected by armed conflict. As most of you might know, when armed conflict erupts in a given country or in a given situation, the first victim in that conflict are usually women and children. So how do we ensure that every child is free from this impacts of protracted armed conflicts is one of the aspirations that was put under aspiration number 9. Aspiration number 10 talks about African children views matter. So this is the aspiration that talks to all of us, meaning like here we are talking about the rights of children. Here we are talking about what children want, what children needs to be protected from, what children rights are, and so on. But if we don't include the views and the perceptions of children themselves, all of our efforts and all our advocacy will be futile. So as aspiration number 10, and me personally, I believe that as an important aspiration, we must ensure that the voice and views of children are incorporated in all that we do. And also we should aim in any of our undertaking with the assumption and also at the back of our mind and also in practice actually that African children views matter. So as much as possible, when we do, for instance, reporting on child rights, it would also be important to consider that the views and also perspective of the child is also included in the different communication, in the different advocacy messaging, and also in the different outcome document that we want to propose or recommendation that we want to propose. So these are the 10 aspirations. How do we monitor? So there is also the monitoring and evaluation aspects of this Agenda 2040. So if we see this Agenda 2040 was institutionalized in 2016. So now we are in 2021. So we are, I don't know how many years, 19 years to go. So the committee also put in place a monitoring and evaluation method where it's at the end of every 5 years, which is listed there, for instance, 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035, and 2040. The committee to facilitate a stakeholder platform, including non-state partners, and also stakeholders to review the achievements made towards the implementation of the agenda. and also look at the main challenges, and also at the same time formulate better ways of working to be done for the next 5 years. So every 5 years, there's a monitoring and evaluation aspect that has been put in the agenda as well. So this is what the agenda is all about in brief. I'm sure when you look at the Agenda 2040, I have both the English and French version, which can be shared. I think Jenny might also be able to share it. You can also see yourself and also the work that you do also outlined in that area. So it will be easier to understand the background of those aspirations, what do you want to achieve out of those aspirations, and how are the action plans and the strategies in order to achieve those aspirations. So this is it from me. I will end it here and also give the floor to Jenny to lead on the next processes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Selam. That was such a learning on the Agenda 2040, who the committee, members of the committee are. Some of us even, we work in the children's sector and you've never seen some of them. I was like, oh, really, that's a new one. So at this juncture, before Evelyn comes in, do we have any questions for Selam, or do we wait until Evelyn does her session and then we can ask questions? If you have questions, just lift up. There's an hand icon at the bottom of your screen if you're using the computer, and on the and you can be able to click and then swipe. If you're using a phone, you can swipe and you can see a hand icon. If you have a question, please lift up. If you have a question to Selam, please lift up your hand. If not, we'll assume you guys, you got everything and Selam was on point and very understandable. If you're shy, you can put your question in the Q&A section and you're going to take, I can't see any hands up yet. So the next session, I'm going to invite.
Can't be shy.
Oh,
journalists can be shy. Actually, they ask the most hard questions.
True. So I'm going to, Ibrahima, I know you are French speaking, so my French is quite bad. You can go ahead and speak. Komlan, can you able to translate that for me, or the translator is already talking? Ibrahima, you can go ahead and speak.
Oui, vous m'entendez? Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Do you hear me?
Yes, you can hear. You can go on.
Okay, thank you. Merci, je voudrais remercier tout le monde et ceux qui ont procédé à la présentation. Seulement, je voudrais revenir sur la dernière, celle de celle-là, pour lui demander de revenir un peu sur les dates clés. Quand est-ce que l'agenda a été mise en place? Quand est-ce qu'il a été voté? Est-ce qu'elle est entrée effectivement en vigueur? Parce que ça, c'est des éléments clés pour des journalistes, pour faire des papiers, pour faire des articles. Comment, quand est-ce qu'il y a tous les pays qui ont ratifié cet agenda? Est-ce qu'elle est déjà entrée en vigueur, eu égard à toutes les nombreuses violations des droits des enfants qu'on a sur le continent? Merci.
Do you need a translation? This is coming from Waxhaw.
It's okay. It's okay. There's translation. There's translation.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can't see any hands, or there are questions in the Q&A. Okay, you read for us that Komlan. It's in French. So you need to read for us that. In the Q&A, there's a question in French. And then I can see 2 hands up. As you're reading that, there are 2 hands up. So I'm going to allow. Are you able to read for us? Or there's someone who has joined with the phone, but they are not.
Yeah, for the techno, question for TechnoSpark 4. Is it the question from TechnoSpark 4?
Yes.
OK. Déjà, le nom de la personne qui est derrière TechnoSpark 4, c'est qui, s'il vous plaît?
Je m'appelle Sibel. Je voudrais...
Sibel, du Bénin, n'est-ce pas?
Oui, du Bénin.
OK. Quelle est votre question, s'il vous plaît? Vous pouvez poser votre question.
Oui, je voudrais savoir la date d'entrée en vigueur de l'agenda 2040 et je voudrais aussi un peu plus d'explications sur l'aspiration numéro 8. Je n'ai pas très bien suivi en raison de la connexion qui flotte. Voilà. Merci.
La date d'entrée en vigueur. Okay. Is it clear for you, the translation? She asked a question.
Okay, thank you so much.
About the date. Yeah, she said she is asking for the date of when that law came into force, and the aspiration number 8, what it is. So if you can give more explanation about it, they will be they will have.
Thank you so much, Komlan. So I think for the date part, are you able to do that fairly? And then Selam, you can come and speak more about Aspiration 8. Felicitas, are you there?
Oh, I'm here, Jenny. Sorry.
You can speak about when the Agenda 2040 started. Selam, you can go ahead.
I can go on. Yes. So I think there might be some internet challenge. So the Agenda 2040 came into force in 2016. So we have the Agenda 2063, the AU Agenda 2063, which talks about different dimensions. So one aspect of it was on the rights of child. So taking that as a background, the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of a Child formulated the Agenda 2040 in 2016. I think that one answers one of the questions. Ibrahima, I think you have asked about the ratification status. Normally, ratification applies for charters, convention policies. So if we talk about the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of a Child, so far it has been ratified by 50 member states. But if we talk about the Agenda 2040, it's an agenda, it's not a binding document. It's kind of a document that guides and leads member states to align some of their laws, policies, and frameworks based on those aspirations. There was also a question on aspiration number 8. Aspiration number 8 talks about children to benefit from a child-sensitive criminal justice system. So when we talk about children benefiting from a child-sensitive criminal justice system, it kind of requires member states to align their criminal justice system to be more child-sensitive and child-friendly. So we can look into, for instance, minimum age of criminal responsibility, and also how do we ensure that the juvenile delinquency system is also child sensitive and also protecting the rights of children. So one aspect that the Agenda 2040 has put is, for instance, to set the minimum age of responsibility for a child to be at 12. So below the age of 12, no one is criminally accountable. So in that sense. So that's what the aspiration number 8 talks about. And also some other aspects like how do we ensure the prison administration for juveniles in our country are child-friendly, child-sensitive, and also protecting and promoting the rights of children who are in that center. So that's what aspiration number 8 talks about. Thanks.
Okay. In addition, Jenny, just to say that in addition to what Salam said, the Agenda 2040 is meant to help us to interpret the charter itself. It's more like an M&E roadmap of some sort, because it's easier to read, it's easier to really understand what the provisions are or what we are being asked to do as member states. And also in terms of aspiration 8, it's also speaking to issues around if you have a child, because when we are talking about children and crime, or children involved in issues of justice. We can have children as victims, we can have them as witnesses, but we can also have them as perpetrators. And as a perpetrator, Salama has already indicated that the minimum age is 12 because it's viewed that before 12 years, children don't necessarily fully understand right from wrong. But perhaps 12 years onward, that could be the case. But it's also speaking to issues of if you have a child as a victim or as a witness, for instance, you need to ensure that even the court itself, when court proceedings are taking place, that such cases can be heard in camera, such that this child as a victim or as a witness don't have to necessarily be facing the perpetrator who might intimidate them and perhaps who might scare them, and they find themselves now fumbling because, as you know, in court, we work with facts and we work with sticking to the story. So if a child is intimidated or is fearful, they might now start changing their story. But it's also meant to ensure that even at investigation level, where a case is still being built up, that children don't, we don't find service providers, particularly the police, who are usually the first people to start the investigative process, that we don't find them now interviewing children in the absence of the key guardian. In some countries, it's social workers. In some countries, it's parents. So a child should always be interviewed in the presence of those people, as it would be prescribed by the national law. So basically, this aspiration is saying that we need to ensure that all these processes are followed through to ensure that ultimately the access to justice for children is child-friendly, such that we can be confident that they have actually been given a fair trial or a fair judgment at the end of the day. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Felicitas and Selam. So I can see two more hands. These are the last ones before Evelyn comes in. Dumi, you can ask your question. You just unmute yourself. And then after that, your name, if I murder it, please forgive me, Irankunda. You can speak after Dumi. Dumi, Dumi, your hand was down. Or it has been answered. Okay. Irankunda, you can speak, you can unmute yourself and speak. Go ahead, Dumi. Dumi, we can't hear you.
I'm saying, can we please have the translations in French to English to everyone, please, because not all of us understand French. I would assume for the same thing also, if they could have their translations.
There is interpretation. So you just click at the bottom of your screen, there's a globe button. You click and then you choose the language that you want. So there's English and French. So when there's a French speakers, you can translate into, you can click into English. And it's going on.
That was my concern, that we can't hear what they're saying in French because we are not really French fluent. So if the translations could be to all of us, please, not just to some people. And the same for them as well.
Just at the bottom of the screen, just click the globe button and the French, the interpretation is available.
Yeah.
Irankunda, you can speak. Irankunda. I hope I'm pronouncing that name the way it's supposed to be pronounced. Irankunda, are you able to speak? Okay, I think she'll speak later, or he'll speak later. So next, I'm going to introduce Evelyn. Evelyn is the communication specialist manager at Plan International, Middle East and South and East Africa. She's a former journalist, one of my favorite former journalists, who has reported impactful stories on children. Some of her stories have resulted to policy change in Kenya and East Africa. So she's going to tell us how to report. You know, you have just been told what is Agenda 2040. So Evelyn is going to tell us how can we report on Agenda 2040? What are some of the story ideas that you can be able to take up and be able to report on that? Evelyn.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is around the globe that you're joining us from. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining us for this forum, over and above every other thing that you're doing. It's good to know that you've taken some time to listen to us, and for that we're grateful. As Jenny said, my name is Evelyn Wambui. I am the Regional Communications and Media Specialist for Plan International. The regional office is based in Nairobi, Kenya, which is where I'm at, currently from my daughter's bedroom as my work office, the perks of working from home. Yes, and today I want us to have a conversation on how we can report on Agenda 2040. But before I begin, I want to really emphasize something that was raised by Felicitas during the opening remarks, and she has also said it throughout her comments in the forum, the importance of you, the media fraternity. And I just want to emphasize that it should not be taken for granted. I know a lot is happening and traditional media is being boggled down with, you know, new media, citizen journalism. But in understanding your role, it's important for you to know that in as much as there are other facets that are coming into play, traditional media is still most credible. And even when we see other news and information in other sectors, we still come to traditional media for verification. So there is the credibility aspect that is solely yours. Even when you don't get the opportunity to do the breaking news as much, we still wait on you to be able to verify a lot of the information that is going out there. So your main agenda as the fourth estate, as the media, is information, raising awareness, as Felicitas said, on issues that are going on around us, news and information, informing people what is happening in the nooks and crannies of this country, where things we may not be able to understand, or things that the population may not be able to understand per se. Your role to persuade the audiences cannot be taken for granted, based on your credibility as a traditional media, as a reliable and known faction. Your role to transmit culture, showing us what other people are doing in other sectors, and allowing people to be able to either take what they can and discard what they cannot. But most importantly, and this is where we're at, and this is the basis of this conversation today, your role as the watchdog, as the scrutinizers, as the people who hold stakeholders and governments accountable for what they are doing or what they're not doing in that regard. So I want you to remain cognizant and remain confident in your role over and above the changing space in the media industry, and your importance in making sure that the right information reaches the population, and also that you are at the forefront and you have the front seat in keeping our leaders accountable about, you know, what is happening around us, and asking them the questions that need to be asked by the people who are otherwise not able to reach them. So I hope that is clear. I want to share my screen. Just give me a second. My desktop, no, this. I don't know if you're able to see my screen.
We could see it, Evelyn.
Oh, you could. All right. One sec. Yeah. There we go. And before I start on how, I wanted to talk about why essentially we should report on Agenda 2040. And I know a lot of this has been mentioned by Selam in the previous presentation, but I wanted to sort of have like a lens, a comms lens, to add a comms lens to it, and to highlight some of the very important facets that you should be looking out for. And before I even start, I should say that if you do have time after this, if you haven't done it before, have a look at these two documents, Agenda 2063 and Agenda 2040. Take time and just, I know as journalists, you know, we're busy and we want to do things and we don't have time to read long documents, so we'd rather have it simplified. But if you can have a minute to look at, to go through the two agendas and just be able to understand exactly what is contained in there and what you can be able to extract in terms of stories, it would really help you when you are talking about children and reporting on Agenda 2040, which focuses on ensuring that we make Africa fit for children. So why should we report on Agenda 2040? I want to start from Agenda 2063, which Selam has talked about, and highlight that the agenda specifically says that everything that has been discussed in the agenda cannot be achieved overnight. It's a slow process. And if it's taking years, then if people are in their 30s, 40s, by the time we're achieving to 2063, they'll be old. So we are targeting the young, the children, so that we are sort of sweeping the path for them, so that by the time we're getting to 2063, everything that they require to be the best versions of themselves has been put in place. So young people have to be the drivers. The media is just providing like a voice for them to be able to speak, or is highlighting the challenges that they're facing, so that we're able to solve the issues before 2063 or before they come into fruition, so that they're able to be the best versions of themselves. So the children are the drivers. And for us to secure a future for them, we need to allow them to be able to have the best environment and to be able to have the best opportunities for them to be the best version of themselves. So this agenda is a futuristic agenda. It's looking into the future and seeing how can Africa be fit for children. And how can we as stakeholders, as governments, make sure that this happens? So in order to allow them to take charge of Africa's future, their full potential has to be unlocked by fully protecting and realizing their rights. So that's what the Agenda 2063 talks to. And the agenda, Selam has said, you know, was the 2063 one was put together in 1990. So over the 25 years between 1990 and 2015, this agenda has come to be realized as the treaty that talks and deals with matters children in the African continent. So for you as a journalist, this is the document you go to when you want to look at everything regarding children and, you know, everything that has been stipulated, and what we should be looking out for when we're talking about children and their rights. So this had been ratified by 47 AU member states. Selam said 50, so I'm assuming that's the latest figure. So this is the document you should go to. And I want to highlight the context. The wordings that I've highlighted there are the ones that I want us to really emphasize or think about when we're doing our reporting, or we're asking the question why. So children are no longer being viewed as objects of concern and sympathy, which is what has been over time, you know. And I want to put a picture, like the picture I've showed there. It's of a girl who, we're talking about her plight, but it's from a sympathetic lens. But the Charter now wants us to be able to understand that children are rights holders. So when we're speaking about children, we're not speaking about them as you know, sympathetic beings or, you know, objects of concern. We want them to talk about their rights. They're autonomous rights holders. Can we hear them through that lens and not through the lens of them being victims? And even when they're victims, we do not concentrate on the fact that they are victims, but we are concentrating on what are these issues that are making them victims and who is responsible to making sure that they remove the hurdle that is making them victims. So that's the kind of lens that I want you to go with as you look at this two charters, agendas. So the understanding of the child, and particularly the girl, is an issue that, their rights has been resisted a lot. Africa is largely a patriarchal society. So girls having rights, standing out to speak about those rights is something that a lot of countries and a lot of cultures and traditions have been against. So this charter, these two documents are looking at this historical prepositions and trying to see how can we change the narrative. And that now brings me to your role as the media to transmit culture and talk about what should change and what is changing, and keeping the stakeholders, the leaders accountable to make sure that this happens. So the charter has set the continent on a constant course of growing acceptance of the independent personhood of children. But this is what the charter has done. The role of the media is to raise awareness on this, to try and show this charter is trying to bring acceptance to the independent personhood of children. Is it happening? What are the challenges that are hindering this process? And also now to talk about the issues. What are the specific issues that are making the realization of this bit of the charter to be a problem? And I want to just go to it's part of the document. And as I said, please read it. There are some countries, there's some states that have entered reservations in respect to this African charter. And I'll mention a few of them. Botswana, for example, does not consider itself bound by Article 2, which defines the child with an inflexible upper age of 18 years. So it does not agree with that. I don't know if this has changed yet. I should confirm. What I know is that for countries like Egypt, let's talk about Egypt, that entered reservations in respect to adoption and the rights of the children of imprisoned mothers. Sudan does not consider itself bound by Article 21(2), which calls for the abolition of child marriage, and further made reservations to, in respect of the right to education of pregnant girls. So it's not something that has been accepted by countries, but has that stopped us from discussing it? The thing that I have liked about the evolution of such documents and such charters is that the more we talk about them, the more we raise awareness over what is happening in countries using the charter, the more we are able to implore or persuade stakeholders or governments to change their thinking and to be able to adapt better ways that will help their children. From the NGO advocacy point of view, it's going to such stakeholders and governments and sitting down with them and explaining to them based on the narratives that we've had from the ground, from the girls, from the communities, about what they want, bringing those concerns to the table. But a lot of that does not really get to the table. There's a lot of high-handedness from governments. But the role of the media supersedes everything else. Once a media house, once a journalist like you who are on this forum decide to go to a community and talk about these issues and highlight them on your platforms that are now, thanks to the internet, global, then you're forcing people to stop and listen, as compared to when the rest of us will take the charters to the offices and try and knock on doors which will not be opened. You have access to all the doors. And by raising such issues, of countries of the situation that is happening to children in specific countries, then you start the conversation and they keep the conversation running. And what you do is that you influence public opinion, most times for good, sometimes not. But just the fact that the conversation is out there takes things on a different notch. things that have been otherwise stagnant start to move in a direction, because this is something that is in the public limelight. So, like I said, now, once the information is out there, then states are held accountable, and they bear the duty to uphold these rights. So we're shifting the discourse towards accepting children as rights holders. What are we doing to make sure that states uphold their rights? That's where you come in with accountability, with being the watchdog, with being the scrutinizer, to say, are these children, are you providing the right environment for them to grow, for them to, we have this areas of distinctiveness. Plan International has like our goal and our vision is to say we want 100 million girls to learn, lead, decide, and thrive. So are we allowing children and girls to learn? Are we providing the right resources to allow them to learn, to lead, to be able to stand up and talk about their rights and say, this is what we want, and not to have people speak on their behalf? And that's also where the media comes in, to provide a platform for children to be able to speak for themselves. Because a lot of people will go and say, this is what children need, this is what girls need. But are we giving them the platform to speak on their own volition? The media does that in interviewing girls, in interviewing children, and allowing them to say what they really want, what they want the governments to do, what they aspire to be in future, and the roadblocks that are on their way. Are we allowing them to decide? Decision-making means a right over their own bodies, over their futures. This is when I want to get married. I want to finish school first. I don't want to have any of these traditional practices done for me. I choose this life. So are we allowing them to decide? And are we allowing them to thrive, to be in safe environments where they can be able to feel free to be the full versions of themselves? So in trying to see whether this is being done, we are ensuring that we are, in your position as media, you're trying to get the states to bear the duty to uphold these rights. And the Children's Charter has also given us a continental basis for state accountability to uphold the independent personhood of children, ensuring that they're no longer victims, they're no longer objects, but they are people who have rights. And so now this is where Agenda 2040 comes in. After looking at 2063 and all the issues that speak to the children, Agenda 2040 is trying to look, like Felista said, it's like a roadmap to try and find ways to make Africa fit for children and Africa fit for girls. Yes, and that's the why. That's the why as stipulated in the charter. The how now comes in. How do we talk about this? And I think a lot of it I've already spoken to. And, answering the questions, are African children empowered? Are they nurtured and nourished from the very beginning, when they're born? Are they getting access to proper nutritious food? Are they being nurtured in safe environments where they can be able to grow? That's for them to thrive, to be the best versions of themselves. Are they safe and secure? Are they getting access to education? Are they getting access to sexual reproductive health and rights? And the information that is in that regard. Are their voices being heard? Are they being listened to? There's a difference between just hearing the voices of children and listening to them. And finally, are the duty bearers being held accountable? And this now speaks to what Selam was talking about, the aspirations that have been laid by Agenda 2040. And as a journalist, this is where to come to when you want to do stories. This document and the experts that have been highlighted are just to give the flesh, to just sort of amplify the messaging that the media is putting out there, to amplify the voices of the children that have been given the platform that is the media to talk about their concerns. So do we have frameworks that advance children's rights? In doing stories, you sort of try and find out, are they available? Do we have frameworks, that are child-friendly on all the, national, legislative, and policy frameworks? Are the children registered? And this, of course, now goes to refugee and displaced children. In your own media work, in your own reporting, finding out if a child's statistics have been registered is important in ensuring that, you know what, their rights are beginning to be implemented right from birth or right from displacement, whatever the case may be. Are they having a healthy childhood? And I'll give examples now in countries where, you know, there's a lot of, I don't want to say, what's the word? Like in countries that have humanitarian crisis, either food insecurity or instability, political instability, economical instability, or otherwise. How are the children there, you know? Are they having a healthy childhood? Because in instances where there's civil strife or any other sort of strife, a lot of the children are not getting a healthy childhood. So in reporting cases in such countries where there's civil strife or any other, we try to answer aspiration 4. How are children surviving, and do they have a healthy childhood? Are they well nourished in countries like South Sudan right now with the food insecurity, countries like Mozambique, where, you know, political strife is affecting other aspects and seeing children going for days without food? Are they well nourished? Do they have the basic necessities to life? You know, basic food, shelter, clothing, okay? So you do realize that a lot of these things are things that you already reported or you already talked to, but now this charters sort of give beef to it and sort of now hold it as basis for you to take to stakeholders and governments to say, hey, these are the stories of the children in the places that we've been to. And this is the charter that you signed up to, and you know there's a mishap here. What are you doing? You know, you have a basis to knock on doors and ask people and hold them accountable based on what they signed up for and what they're doing for the children in their countries. So, do they benefit from quality education in some countries where now schools have been turned to army bases for militia, or have been turned to IDP camps because of the violence? Children are now not going to school. Are you reporting? How are you reporting? What are you basing the situation of such children on the charter? Going back to countries and saying, but you signed up to this, that you will ensure every child is protected or benefits from quality education. This number of children are not benefiting from quality education. We've spoken to this child who says they've not gone to school over the last 2 years or since the pandemic started. So are you living up to what you signed up to? So those are now it's sort of your data journalism. You're using this as a basis to raise awareness or to put people into account about, you know, what needs to be done. So are children benefiting from child-sensitive criminal justice system, as Felistas was talking about? You know, are they feeling safe? Are those people are they being put in the same room as the perpetrators? If they are perpetrators themselves, are they being protected if they're under 12 and such concerns? And aspiration 9 and 10, you know, African children's views matter. And I think aspiration 10 is precisely in your docket, the fact that the media should be the place where children have a platform to be able to speak directly to the stakeholders about what they feel is not being done for them. So, and of course now these aspirations are followed by the implementation of the agenda and also monitoring. And that's also, monitoring happens in twofold, of course, from those people who wrote the charter to now 25 years on, see where we are, 10 years on, see where we are, but also from the media. And speaks to everything that I've said before, going back to say, yes, it's been 25 years, it's been 5 years since like the Agenda 2040, since 2016. What have you been able to do? How have you been able to move, you know, from this particular stand to this new stand? Have you been able to answer to the concerns of the children as you signed up to? Yeah. So the rest of this now, of course, now just speaks to what Plan International believes in, but also what is in this is sort of like Plan International's driving force, vision, and mission. It's specific, that's what I was looking for, specific to plan, but it also speaks to the general, because plan also subscribes to the agendas and to the charters that have been put forth. So 100 million reasons for us is looking at ways in which we ensure 100 million girls learn, lead, decide, and thrive, which I'll talk about later. But as a global movement for girls' rights, we want to make sure that 100 million girls have the opportunity to go through the process of life from birth to achieving the skills that they require to be able to lead a better life or a good life. So even as we do our work in mobilizing partners, power holders, and supporters, we cannot do a lot of this without the media. The media has to speak to these power holders and supporters so that they can be able to come together. It's also supposed to provide the spaces for civil societies and communities to be able to speak about the issues that are affecting children. In as much as you're also giving platforms for the children, there are those who speak or who are calling for changes to happen in whatever sphere to ensure that girls' rights are realized. So are you giving these people also platforms to be able to talk about the challenges that are faced by children and what needs to be done? It's sort of like helping, having people to back up the greater cause, because sometimes you may have, the journal, you may have the girls or the children speaking to you, but the facts that support that could come from documents, but could also come from technical experts who are usually around, civil society groups or NGO groups like Plan International, who can speak to their own realities based on the work that they do on the ground. A lot of the times, a journalist would go to the field for 1-2 days, speak to 2-3 children, and understand just a snippet of the lived realities of the communities. But it is people who are on the ground, including now the civil society groups, the local NGOs who are on the ground, leaders who have lived with such realities every day, who can now come up and beef up and say, yes, you have been able to speak to Evelyn, who's a 10-year-old or who's an 18-year-old and who speaks to this, but this is not something that is unique to her. We were able to record this number of children who are going through the same challenges, and that sort of globalizes it, local reach, global presence. You're able to sort of amplify the voice of one girl based on the realities of the experiences and explanations of technical experts. So in what we do, it's something that you also do, making change happen by discussing it and limelighting it at individual level, at family, at national, and at global level. And this happens by visibility and profiling, which is a lot of it is being done by the media. I also want to mention, and this is one thing that Plan International really focuses on and is really vocal about, the role of the girls. And I've said it before, the children. The children are active drivers of change. I speak to girls a lot here because Plan International is a girls' rights organization. But even as I say girls, remember, girls are part of a community. They don't live alone. They don't live in a bubble. They are part of a community. And as children, they are active drivers of change, and we need to give them that agency so that they're able to drive the change they need. As they call out for change, we want to inspire, to give them a platform, and we pray that the media will continue to give them the platform to be able to speak about this and inspire people everywhere to stand with them, to listen to them, and to see in which ways they can be able to address some of the concerns that they're raising. Yes, so these are things that I've mentioned before. If they learn, do they have inclusive quality education? Do they have building skills that prepare them for, and opportunities that prepare them for decent work so that they're able to provide for their families? As we lead, do we enable girls and boys and young people to be active citizens, to be able to make decisions for themselves? Are we providing them with such platforms? Are we ensuring that they're in such spaces where they can be able to articulate their issues in deciding? These are the sexual, reproductive, and health and rights for children. Are we ensuring that they have access to the information that they require so that they're able to decide on what they want for themselves. And finally, gender sensitive, gender sensitive protection and ECD. And by gender sensitive, I mean that children cannot be looped together. There are issues that are independent, individual to girls and boys, and there are those that are looped together. So just looking at issues that affect children in general, issues that affect boys, issues that affect girls, and trying to see if individually they are also being addressed over and above them being addressed as children. Yep, and yes, all working towards the achievement of the development goals. Yes, that long conversation brings me to the end. My contacts are there in case you need any information that could guide you in terms of storytelling, getting stories from within the region. We are active in most African countries, and you can be able to reach Plan International on any issues, especially with regard to girls' rights and what is being done and what isn't being done. The provision of technical experts who can help with crafting and making your stories the best or stronger in terms of information and getting to explain in further detail or in more detail the lived realities of our children all over Africa. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the questions. Jenny?
Thank you so much, Evelyn. As I said, she is an expert in this area. So I've seen questions in the chat box. I've seen there's lots of questions coming in the Q&A section. So I'm going to give people a chance. If you have questions and you want to speak, or you just want to pick Evelyn, Felicitas, Selam, we have Komlan, we have Freshers' brains on some of the stories that you are thinking about before we go to the part where people don't like us when we talk about protecting children in the media. So what is going through your mind right now? Do you have any questions that you think, she said this, but how, this is the time. So I'm going to start with Maureen. Maureen sent a question. Maureen, do you want to speak? And then Dumi. Okay, Dumi, your hand is already up. You can start, and you're already unmuted as I look for Maureen. Dumi, go ahead.
The question I have is, she mentions that Africa is a patriarchal society because men usually dominate making decisions. But I like to put a counter option that it may look so because men have this warrior strength and whatever else. But isn't it women who are more influential in how the society is shaped? They are the ones who are basically primarily responsible for the rearing of children. They are the ones who are primarily responsible for the affirmation of children, the boy children and the girl children. And in the choices of men that we pick, how we raise our boys and who we marry, isn't that more influential on the kind of society that we are? Because as much as we'd like to say the youth is the target and all of that for their future, the fact of the matter is we have, in my example, my grandmother raised me. She was over 60. She died in her 70s. I was a teenager at the time when she died. Now I'm an adult. I realize the fact that how she raised us is not the same as how people lived in her time as a youth, in her time as a mother to her children, and in her time as a grandmother to us. At one point, for example, in my home, she used to have this phrase to say, umsebenzi uyefana, which was Zulu for there is no separation of gender roles in jobs, in what you do in the house, in terms of house chores. There's nothing we couldn't do or we shouldn't do. There was no categorization of work in terms of you are a girl, you are a boy, girls do this, boys do that. When it was time to work, we all had to work. And now, growing up, that was 100% normal for me. When I'm an adult, a young adult, I'm 40 now, I'm 45 now. At the time, when I was in my early 20s, being a young adult, living in town in a metropolitan area like Durban, now I'm living in Johannesburg, I realized that actually how we were raised is actually abnormal, in the sense that it's actually a minority of us who were raised that way. The whole number of people, their parents don't teach them that. Their mothers, in fact, my aunts are the same. They taught us the same thing, and my cousins were taught the same way. But I realized that as a family, not just my nuclear family, but as a family, like all of us, my grandmother's children and grandchildren, we are actually an anomaly compared to how other children are raised in their homes. And that's where I put my point now. For 20 years more as an adult now, I realize that we keep on saying patriarchy, attacking the men, but the men are not people who are in charge of homes. Men are not people who are making the rules at home. It's usually the women. The women, they are the ones who do the rules. Even last year or the year before, the UN recorded a report to say there are just as many women as men who are not into women empowerment. So more than men, I think the real problem is women. If we channel the energies to women, more girls, more women, more girls, more grown-up women thinking differently and influencing themselves before they influence a child, they influence themselves differently. I think if we target that, then there's somewhere where we are going. Because if we keep on just attacking the men as if men are the problem, not that men are not a problem, they are a problem, but I'm saying a greater problem is people of influence, and the people of influence is how a woman is. And Malcolm X said it before, and I can see how right he was. If you want to see where the nation is going, look at the character of its women. Those women pull the nation. They don't just push it, they pull the nation to a direction. And I think it's very important for us to not to miss that spot about how we're going to get this change going.
Thank you, Dumi. I need Komlan, are you back? There's a question in the Q&A section. Are you able to read for us? It's in French. Are you able to read it for us, Komlan? Komlan, are you there? If not, Dominique, you can be able to read it for us. There's a question in the Q&A. Okay.
As that happens, Jenny, can I respond to Dumi, who has raised very important points? Thank you so much, Dumi, for that. And as you were saying that, I was nodding because those are the stories that we need to talk about. In as much as, yes, it's true that a lot of the households are women-led. It's women-led, but the men are still the head of the homes. The men are still the ones who sit in important positions that make decisions. And that's also what we actually had a campaign and a report that came out from Plan International that spoke to how if girls are able to see, then they can be able to do. The concern there was that a lot of the spaces are male dominated, and especially in the career world, a lot of the people who sit in the big, behind the big desks are men. And they're the ones who sort of continue to perpetuate that thinking, that knowledge that they're the ones who lead the show. Well, of course, now we do know that what men can do, women can do, and these are things that, of course, we can speak on other platforms. But just to say that we need more stories that inspire the future generation. And like you said, you're one of the very few who were raised up knowing that, every chore belongs to everyone, and being empowered to know that nothing is beyond your reach as a young girl or as a young woman. The only concern is, and for many of the girls that we've spoken to, when they get to, the job market, then they realize that the reality in their home is not what is there in the job market. So even as we speak to homes, how are we able to speak to the environment that children are, come out to once they're out of, their homes? And how are they able to fit in such positions? How are the laws that, or the rules or the cultures that propagate a specific skewed way of thinking? How are we? And the reason why there's that skewed way of thinking is because a lot of the people who sit at the table are of a specific gender. So are we able to get women to sit on this decision-making tables? Are we able to get children to sit on this decision-making table so that they're able to articulate their lived realities and they're able to speak to issues that matter to them? And I want to give an example. Like, I wouldn't know the lived realities of a man because I am a woman. A woman would say they know, but a man would say they know the lived realities of women, but in true sense, they don't. So everybody needs to be represented in every, table that is making decisions, so that all the issues of all the facets, of all the different types of people are put on the table and are discussed, and all the issues are sort of addressed depending on who's at the table. So I hear you 100%. We need to continue to tell the stories. And I think the reason why there's a shift in people saying, hey, women are the ones who lead our homes, is because we continue to tell such stories, to say that men go out to look, but it's the women who look for food and do 2-3 jobs to ensure children go to school. Such conversations are finally coming out, and I think probably by the time we're getting to 2063, hopefully this will be not only a reality that is normal, but something that we are able to take and actually take to different forums that will allow women to be the best versions of themselves, as I repeat myself. But yeah, I agree with you, Domi. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Dominique, I have posted a question in the chat box. If you can able to just translate for us.
Okay, can you see it, Jenny? I can't see
I can't see the question.
I can't see the translation.
Yeah, me too. Are you able to read it out?
I've seen it. Yeah, seen it. So I am Iran Kunda from Burundi. You have just told us that the monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of this 24 agenda will be done every 5 years. Don't you think that this time is long compared to the violence that children suffer, especially in countries where social political crisis dominates social lives? I don't know if I said that, but even it's Selam. Okay, but of importance, I would say that in as much as when we're coming back every 5 years, in terms of monitoring and evaluation, we are looking at the steps, the positive steps that have been taken in the realization of the agenda. How far have stakeholders come in accepting, some of their responsibility and putting the girls at the center of everything that they need to do? How are children, in terms of agency, have they been given more opportunities to be able to speak about their lived realities? Are they sitting in the proper spaces where their rights are being heard? So we don't have, it may take 5 years for the agenda to be reviewed, but every day is an opportunity for us to be able to talk about, the issues that are there presently and what should be done. And I could actually say that in the monitoring and evaluation, a lot of it could also come from, the stories that have been said by the media and by journalists, and how those stories have impacted decisions by countries, by governments, by stakeholders. So I don't think the media should feel limited by, the monitoring and evaluation that is being done by this number of years. Every day is an opportunity for you to be able to tell the story and retell it until, and I know these days a lot, the greater passion and the greater satisfaction of any journalist or any media house is creating stories of impact and actually seeing that, what, we actually talked about this and something was done, a bill was passed, something was ratified, that end game, ensuring that something has been done at the end to ensure that the rights of girls, the rights of children are being put in account, is what provides the greatest satisfaction for anyone. So regardless of how long it takes to sort of do and share the monitoring and evaluation process, what are we doing as the media to ensure that every day we are scrutinizing and we are holding stakeholders accountable about what they are not doing to ensure we realize this? Yeah.
Thank you, Evelyn. Maureen, your hand is lifted up. You can unmute yourself, Maureen. Maureen from Nigeria.
Okay, good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
Yes, mine it's more like a comment and like an eye opener on the presentation Evelyn just made. You know, like in Nigeria, we've had a series of insecurity issues of kidnapping of children from school environment, which in the long run, you know, for means of safety, these schools are being shut down because they feel the environment are no longer safe for them to go back. And then we see for a very long period of time, these schools are closed, and because the children cannot go back to school and they feel it's not safe for them to go back without any possible solution in ending this situation. We see a lot of issues surrounding this. And then from her presentation, it eyes to see that, yes, in the Nigerian media, we actually report a lot of the kidnapping, a lot of the insecurity, but we really do not streamline the stories and how it affects those children and what's the government owe the children in this. But this presentation of what the 2040 and all these issues, all this presentation. But I would love to ask, like when Selma was making the presentation, I could see a lot of the repertoires that was presented, but do we really have one for Nigeria, like any that represents the Nigeria country?
Jenny, I don't know if Selam is still available.
Selam, are you there?
Hi, Jim, I'm here, but I haven't heard the question.
Maureen, probably you can repeat the question.
There was an echo.
Okay, what I'm saying is this. In Nigeria, we have a series of kidnapping, especially in schools, kidnapping children from the school environment. And in the long run, these schools are just shut down with no possible safety implementation, no alternative for activities for these children. Yes, in Nigeria, as reporters, we report the issues of kidnapping, we report how these schools are shut down, but in the mainstream media, there is no like pinpointing this issues of this 2040 agenda for the children. We really do not have them in this in our reporting, in our research. Now, what my question to you was, during your presentation of the repertoires for the countries, I really did not get to see if there is any for Nigeria. So I was just asking, do we have a repertoire that is representing this Agenda 2040 or this plans for the children? Do we have a representative for Nigeria?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, and I totally understand your question, especially on the issue of kidnapping children and also young girls in Nigeria. So one of the aspects that we should look at is like the primary power holders or accountable people in all member states are, of course, the government first. Then when national procedures and accountabilities are not successful, like we also look into some other regional and international and also continental mechanisms where we can hold the states into account. So your specific question on whether there is a specific representative, or I would say rapporteur, because in the
committee of experts. We call them country reporters. So for Nigeria, I know that Honorable Robert Nanima, who's the special rapporteur on children in armed conflict. If you go into the link, I think I can, the link, the committee website, you can see Honorable Robert Doya Nanima. He's a member of the committee and also the special rapporteur on children in armed conflict. So he's responsible country rapporteur for CAR, Chad, Eswatini, Malawi, and Nigeria. So that might give some background on the specific question that you have asked me. I'm not sure if it addresses.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And just to add on to that, Maureen, please don't feel feel free to reach out to our regional comms and media lead, whose contact I've just put in the chat box. A lot of the information that you could be looking for, we maybe have done research and some project papers, or you can get over and above the rapporteurs, the technical experts in-house who can be able to speak to the challenges that are being faced and what can be done from a technical point of view. So, and I speak to Maureen and also all other journalists. I know a lot of the times when you're thinking of reaching out to, a civil society group or representative or an NGO, there's, that fear that, it's going to be like a PR stunt, or it will now be fully branded and it will look like you're propagating an organization's perspective. But a lot of the times you can be able to sort of differentiate or distinguish by just getting the information that you need that will help or beef up your story in terms of data. And a lot of these NGOs and these civil society groups have, stacks of papers and research that they've been able to do, which you can use in your media reporting to highlight some of these issues and to hold the relevant stakeholders accountable. So please don't feel scared that, by reaching out to a particular agency or particular NGO that you are doing PR for them. If you're just able to get to them and just get the information that you need, it will really help you with your documentation and your reporting.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Felicitas. Thank you, Selam. So next we are we're going to discuss about safeguarding children in our reporting. But before that, I just want to remind you that after this session, we are going to have a pitch session of about 30 minutes. And if you have a story idea about Agenda 2040, we would want to hear from it. We have a small budget that we want to support a couple of journalists from across Africa to do stories before the Day of the African Child. So before that, let me go to my presentation. So I'm the one who is taking up through the presentation on safeguarding children when reporting. So I'll try to be as short as possible so that we don't stay here for long. So as you've heard Selam speak, you've heard Evelyn speak, and they've all spoken about the importance of reporting on children, okay? And we all are, right now, our brains are buzzing with stories and all this. But as we report, it is important to ensure that we are safeguarding children, okay? Because children are very sensitive. And the thing is about children, whatever you can report about them now when they are young, below the age of 18, will live with them forever, okay? It's not like a politician who is 50, that it was just a short while. But for a child, they will live with the consequences of your reporting forever. So it is very important for us to when you're reporting, to ensure that we are safeguarding children, okay? So this training takes longer. So this is called, I'm going to compress it, but I'm sure we will plan another more comprehensive training for this. So I'm going to start with what is safeguarding. It's child protection of safeguarding process, protecting individual children identified as suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. This includes child protection procedure, which detailed how to respond to concerns about children, okay? And when you're reporting, most of the time, as a journalist, we do not report on heroes. We most of the time report on victims, okay? And these victims most of the time are children. So when you report, what are the safeguarding measures that you should take so that you don't harm these children, okay? So, and you see, and it does not stop at the measures, but what are your responses? Okay, for example, take the story of what Maureen has told us about in Nigeria, where there's a lot of kidnapping. Okay, so you found these girls who have been kidnapped, right? And then you need to want to safeguard them as you tell your story, because you want to expose their faces to everyone. But what is your response? So what? You've told the story, so what? What do you want to see? What can you as a journalist do beyond telling the story to ensure that the life of this child is preserved? Okay, and life, I'm not talking about the physical life, I'm talking about the social life, okay? I'm talking about the emotional life, okay? I'm talking about the spiritual life. How has it been impacted, okay? How can it be safeguarded, okay? Protect them from abuse, maltreatment, and exploitation. In your reporting, you're ensuring that it's not going to propagate further abuse, it's not going to propagate further maltreatment, it's not going to propagate further exploitation, okay? I'll give you an example. I don't know about, maybe other countries is different, but in Kenya, when we have a national exam, the top student in Kenya is put on the newspaper, okay, or on TV, and they are because they're number one, okay? So there's this case of a child who was, I think, top 10 or something, and she was running or she was rushing somewhere, and then she was, you know, it takes a village kind of conversation. A woman in the village said, can you please go get for me something in the shop? But because she was in a rush, she did not hear, or she did not understand what that woman was saying. That woman started telling people, this little girl, since she was seen in the newspaper, she does not want to be sent anybody. She has had a very big head. She doesn't want to listen to us anymore because of our reporting. It was a very good story. It was a positive story, but you can see she was maltreated in the community. Prevent anything from harming their health or development. And here we're talking of not only physical health, again, I'm talking about mental health, okay? Is your story going to ensure, cause this child to be more in trauma, or cause them to have a mental illness, okay, or become depressed, okay, or become be bullied, okay, because of your story? Ensure that they grow up under safe and effective care. So if you're telling that story, are you ensuring that they are safe, okay, and there's care, okay? And then take action to ensure that they have the best outcome in life, okay? As you tell the story, think about their best, because they have just lived less than 18 years of their life. Yeah, because a child is defined as a person below the age of 18. So as you tell the story, remember this person has lived less than 18 years. So whatever story you're going to tell, and 18 is not even a quarter life. Quarter life, we start quarter life from 25 years, right? They've not lived even quarter life, quite of their life. And whatever story is going to live with them forever. And in the internet age, the internet never forgets. Okay, so as you're telling your story, remember the internet never forgets, because nowadays, as we go online, we are also going digital. Okay, why safeguard? Okay, missing warning signs have serious consequences and leave vulnerable individuals open to abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Poor safeguarding or lack of safeguarding with your organization could result to cases of abuse or neglect or being missed, okay? And increase in the cases of severity. I'll give an example. There's a story that was done. I've seen Hadija is part of the participant here, and she can tell you. There's a story that was done about Ugandan child trafficked girls in Kenya. And this particular journalist showed, it was a two story. It was Kenya and a Uganda story. So it was a cross-border story. So this particular journalist went and showed where these girls are being trafficked from, okay? And even the village, guess what happened the following week? All the Kenyans who traffic children were in Uganda, and they didn't have to pass through Kampala. They passed through the other side of the border, and they were able to go and find the village where girls were being bought for less than $50. Okay, and the following, there was an influx of girls from Uganda in Kenya. Why? Because a journalist told a story without considering safe and putting other children in more danger. Okay, vulnerable children being treated on lack of compassion, of empathy. Okay, you find like, because you've told a story about sexual abuse for so long, guys, people from South Africa will agree with me. You said girls are being abused, guys are being raped, girls, it becomes a norm. Okay, so people don't. Oh, so what? Okay, so another one. Okay, it becomes a norm. So it becomes a normal thing for, if you don't have the same as politics, if you don't have a story of an abuse in the media today the news is not complete. Okay, so and people start lacking compassion when they hear someone has been abused. Anyway, even there's a girl yesterday was reported in the news that was also raped. Okay, so that is normal nowadays. In our country, in Joburg, it's a normal thing. Okay, so are we able to tell a story that we don't lose that compassion and empathy towards vulnerable group? Increase confusion and distress for individuals who are suffering but do not know who to talk to. Okay, so you find like when you're telling your story, that it causes confusion. Like people, I can't understand. They said in 1918, okay, because the story is so mixed up, you could not understand. Okay, lose of dignity and liberty. I'll go back to the story of the trafficked girls. Okay, someone has shown those girls, has platted them on the newspaper and on TV. So can you imagine what happens when that girl probably decides to go back to school? What happens when that girl, just give me a second. So imagine they get splattered on TV, on the newspaper, and then what happens? Okay, when they decide to live that kind of life, or they go back to their normal life, people will be saying, that girl or that boy that was in the newspaper, So if they lose their dignity, they lose their humanity because of a story that was told. Okay, start. Okay. Principles of safeguarding in the media: respect the dignity and the rights of every child in every circumstance. Okay, if a child is from high end, okay, or they are from low income, please respect all children. Okay, don't go say this child, because most of the time, especially when children are from high income communities, people kind of want to report to them with soft gloves, or they fear their dads. Let me just say that. You don't know who their father is, so we cannot tell the story. Okay? So remember that child, if you're telling a story of a child from a high income community is being abused, it's the same child, it's the same case as a child who is in the low income. Okay? If you're going to have the same impact, please try to tell the story in the way that is going to have an impact without checking their circumstance. Okay, are they in conflict situation? Okay, are they in do they have a disability? Okay, are they boy, girl, or intersex? Okay, what kind of how are you taking them? Okay, in interviewing and reporting children, pay a special attention to each child's right to privacy and confidentiality. And this, I fight this with journalists most of the time, because if a child says, I don't want to be interviewed, please don't force them. They don't want to be interviewed. Try to get your source from somewhere else. If that child feels they're not ready to, or they're not ready to tell you that story, please don't coerce them. Don't in Kenya we call them moye them. Please, can you? No, if they don't want, they don't want. Okay, just respect their right to privacy. And if they gave you that information in privacy, please don't go sell it to the highest bidder. Okay, and ensure that apart from them refusing, and they give you that, make sure that you protect them as much as possible. I always give a story of a journalist. We go to a village. You're telling a story of a child who has been defiled. Okay, and you go to the village, and because you came here and Jennifer told you right to privacy, you go and say you not show the child's face. Okay, because you're told don't show the child's face. But you know what you show? You show the child's uniform. You show the child's parents. You show the child's village, where they come from, the street where they come from. That's not privacy. So when you're doing, you have to ensure that that child cannot be traced by anybody, okay? Remember, I think most of us have seen the BBC story where using Google Maps and geomapping, they were able to trace, just a Google map, they were able to trace where I think it was a family was killed. And they did not, they just used, who tells you if you're telling actually a sensitive stories like trafficking or online abuse, that the perpetrators will not be able to trace children, okay? Protect the best interest of the child over any other consideration, including advocacy for children's issues and the promotion of children's rights, okay? Is your story, as much as it is good, Evelyn has told us, is it 10 million girls, okay? She's just told us about 10 million girls. I say, this story, if I tell it, I'm sure we are going to reach about 100,000 girls, okay? And you're going to be towards reaching our 10 million girls. But is that in the best interest of that child? Is it going to put that child in danger by telling that story? It's a good story. It's going to have so much impact. But is it going to harm that one child as you tell that story? Okay? So you, and is it even promotion of children's rights? Say, no, I'm going to tell this story because I think people need to know about the atrocity in our community. If we don't show this girl's face, we are not going to show, people are not going to know about the atrocity of in our community or in this particular community. But as you tell that story, you put this one child in danger. So you have to weigh the best interest of the child should be taken as a paramount consideration. Okay, and this is according to the UNCR's, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child. Okay, so the best interest of the child should be of the paramount consideration above everything. However big story it is, however how many awards you're going to get, however how many NGOs are going to call you after that story, but the best interest of the child should always be of the paramount importance. Okay. When trying to determine the best interest, give due weight to the rights to have their views taken into account with their age and maturity. Okay. So, for example, if it's a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, you're telling a story, and that child cannot even comprehend what's happening to them. Okay. And is that in the best interest of the child to tell that story? Considering a 17-year-old who is eloquent and they can be able to tell that story. And then do not publish a story or an image that might put the child, their siblings or peers at risk, even when their identities are changed or obscured. I think I've said this before, okay? Even when you don't tell, if you're doing privacy or you're saying confidentiality, don't go show their parents' face or their siblings' face or the color of their uniform for those ones who put on uniform, okay? Or their village, don't say they come from this particular village. You're not doing justice to that child. You're not putting their privacy into consideration. Guidelines for reporting on children. This has been borrowed from, I think, Save the Children. Do not further stigmatize any child. Avoid categorizing or description of that expose a child to negative reprisal. So, like for example, that child who is disabled or that child who is, don't describe them, call them by their name, okay? That Maureen is okay? Don't define them, don't label them, because the label that you put them on the media, you know what happens? You label them on the media, it becomes their name. It will be that disabled child, okay? Because a journalist labeled that child already. Always provide accurate context for the child's story or image, okay? Don't show a crying child who was crying because their mom has refused to give them food, and you say this child has been raped, for example, okay? Because you got, last week I had a meeting with some editors, and one editor said that they bought some Shutterstock photos of a couple, okay? And this couple is a Kenyan couple, and they put that image in the newspaper. And what happened is, after that, that couple got to see. The story they told was about divorce and separation. Remember that couple is still together. So everybody was like in their circles. Like, did you guys separate? Did you guys divorce? But in reality, they are still together. So it caused harm in their family. So when you're telling, so be very, very sensitive on the kind of images you're showing or the kind of cutaways, because you're very good, because you're looking for cutaways to beef up your story. You get a cutaway from there, you cut away, and you're telling it, but it's actually out of context of the story that you're telling. Always change and obscure visual identity of any child who is identified as a victim of child abuse and exploitation, okay? A perpetrator of physical or sexual abuse, HIV positive or living with AIDS, unless the child or parent or guardian gives fully informed consent. Even with this, be very careful. Remember, this child is below age of 18 and they will live with this forever, okay? Charged or convicted of crime. So if children are in conflict with the law, do not show their faces at all, because you don't want people, you want them to have a life after they have served their time, okay? So if they have them, just let them, don't show their faces. In certain substance of risk potential of harm or it will change the name or obscure visuals. A current or former child of combat. Again, you want this child to have the rest of their life, okay? At an asylum seeker, okay, a refugee or an internally displaced child. So imagine this child has the rest of their life. So don't let them be labeled, you're a refugee, because you are seen on TV as refugee children, okay? So because they have the rest of their life to live. No staging. Do not ask children to tell a story or take an action that is not part of their own story, okay? Because you want to have an aha moment, you want everybody to have a shock, so you tell them to stage, okay? I have had where I work, I've had where someone, unfortunately, and NGOs come and tell us, so can we have that particular part? Can we have a child? Can we have actors doing that? Okay, but because it is not part of your story, don't force a child to relive their trauma, okay? Because you want to tell a story, okay? Don't take a child to a place of where they were abused because you want to tell your story from the source. So because you are safeguarding the rights of that child, okay? Ensure that the child or guardian knows that they are talking to a reporter, okay? Don't go there saying you're Evelyn, you're from Plan International, and you're coming to bring support. Say you're a reporter and you're coming to tell a story about A, B, C, and D. Okay, always obtain consent, okay? Obtain permission from the child and his or her guardian. Let me repeat, from the child, okay? The guardian can say yes, but if the child says no, please don't force, okay? Because the child, it's their own story, okay? If the child says, I do not want to be interviewed, but I already spoke to your mom, and your mom said it's okay. No, don't tell that story. Pay attention to where the child is being interviewed, okay? Don't, as I said, don't take a child where they were abused, okay? If a child, for example, experienced asking or they were raped, don't take them where they were raped to tell the story. Oh, this is where you were raped. Oh, this is where you are trafficked from. No, don't take them, because you're traumatizing them. And then, of course, when you're interviewing them, don't interview them under the sun, the blaring sun, or under rain, because you want your story to be more impactful, okay? Look for a place that is friendly, there's no noise. And if these I always tell guys, if, for example, you've gone with a crew and that child is not comfortable telling their story in front of many people, okay? Try to have a one-man person, okay? Set up the camera, set up your audio, be you and the camera and the child, okay? Because that child is not comfortable telling the story in front of everybody. If that child is not, you're a guy or a man, and he's not comfortable telling your story because you're a man, look for someone else, okay? Maybe one of your crew member who is a lady to tell that story. Don't feel, oh, I'm the one who is going to, I'm the anchor, I'm the reporter, why this child is going to take the thunder, this other guy is going to take the thunder away from me. No, if the child is comfortable to speaking to someone else, just because you don't tell the story, let the child speak to that person that they are comfortable with, okay? Consider the choice of visuals or audio of the background, okay? Don't go, and the story is something different. It's not like a horror movie or a suspense movie, but because you want more drama, you put some interesting visuals and some interesting graphics and some interesting background music because you want that effect, okay? Just remember that the best interest of the child should be taken as of the paramount, okay? I will go to this, confirm the accuracy of what the child has told you, either with other children or an adult, preferably with both, okay? There are cases where the child tells you a false story, and it has happened so many times, okay? They will tell you how their mother has died, okay? And they are orphans, okay? Because they are used to, whenever they say they're orphans, they get a package of food or something, okay? So always try to verify your story, okay? Go ask, are you sure that is that child an orphan or whatever? It has this child defiled. Try to verify that story so that you don't get into trouble with the community. Okay, so that way I was told, and this is a true story of somewhere in northern Kenya where journalists would come, especially from the global media. They will come and they will find these children, and this story they always have. Depending on what you want, they will tell you. But in reality, they were telling you false because they want water, they want the biscuits that the journalists were carrying in their cars. And it was, and when the journalists will go back and they are verifying, they told, no, those they are just playing you. They're just playing. So be very conscious and try to verify. When in doubt about whether a child is at risk, report on the general situation of the children rather than an individual child, no matter how newsworthy the story is, okay? So if you are in doubt that one, of that story, and number two, that you're going to put that child at risk, okay? Just go give a general overview of that story instead of giving a case study, okay, of that particular story, okay? I hope you're together. I'm rushing through because of time, okay? Mandatory reporting, a mandatory protocol, reporting protocol for children at risk. Okay, mandatory reporting. If you suspect that child is at risk, or they have told you in confidentiality, there are times where a child says, because they've been seeing you on TV or they've heard about you, they will come to you to tell you, by the way, this has been happening. Can you help me? Okay. To put yourself, please report to the police. If something, especially that child is at risk, report to the police or a toll-free line, okay? Confidentiality. So I may sound as if I am contradicting myself. So when in risk, that you can be able to break the confidentiality. You can break confidentiality. When the child is at risk, you can break it, okay? But when confidential reporting is where their information they have given you should be kept at maximum protection, okay? Support, okay? Try to get support. If that child, you feel this child is in trauma, they have never received help, okay? Try to get support, okay? I've worked in the last few months, I've worked with a couple of journalists where they come and say, Jennifer, you told us to do this story. We went and we found these girls, but we've told the story, so what? Can we try to get help, okay? Try to get help to that. You may not give the help yourself, but try to connect them to an organization that can support them. If, for example, you're telling a story of lack of sanitary towels, okay? As a journalist, you don't have sanitary towels for yourself, but you can be able to mobilize an organization to go and provide sanitary towels to those girls, okay? You find those girls, or they're in trauma, or those children are in trauma, you can mobilize an organization to go and provide counseling, okay? And psychosocial support to those children, okay? They don't have food. You can be able to mobilize an organization to go and provide food. So don't let your story end as a story, especially when it's in trauma, okay? Maintain anonymity. storage of data is relating to safeguarding. So here I'm going to dwell a little bit here, okay? Most of the time we go to the field, we collect very good stories, we record them, okay? But how do we keep that data, okay? For example, I always say, especially stories, sensitive stories like trafficking, okay? Sensitive stories like abuse, okay? Where the person, if the information that you have is leaked, is going to put that child in so much danger, okay? How do you keep it? How do you ensure that the data that you have is protected, okay? How many people have access to that data before you put that story live, okay? How many people have access to that information, okay? You have to be very, very careful, because whoever has that rate can be able to put that child in danger, okay? Provision of support for investigators and journalists. So you don't die by yourself. If you have reported very, very traumatizing stories, especially in conflict areas, or you've gone, for example, in Nigeria, you found these girls and they're in bad situation. You're human, okay? Please try to get support, okay? Or you've investigated a story and you found things that they have just questioned yourself and humanity in general. Please seek for help, okay? You cannot help others if you don't seek help yourself, okay? Seek for help, for psychosocial support. I'm sure if you call Evelyn, she can direct you to the right person, okay, to get help, okay? You have to take care of your mental health as a journalist for you to be able to tell impactful stories. Ethics, this is the last one. Accuracy and fact-based reporting, okay? Avoid malicious, lies, fake, and unverified information, okay? There are so many websites out there that you can be able to verify, especially issues to do with data, okay? Conscious, do not peddle anti-children migrant propaganda to be a voice for political or vested interest, okay? Let politicians push an agenda with you, okay? That is against children, okay? Be impartial, be human, okay? Okay? Journalism should not do any harm. Show compassion in your reporting, okay? Be accountable and transparent, okay? Correct errors and always disclose who you are and be open with your methods, okay? I think that's my last slide. I'll say thank you, and Evelyn, I hope I've not left anything important in my conversation. So thank you so much. I don't know, Evelyn, have I left out something you can be able to add?
Yeah, thanks. That was really, really good. I know, I just wanted to say something. And because I remember when I was a journalist, I thought this sector, the NGO, civil society sector, were very restrictive in terms of allowing us to get stories. And it's counterproductive to say that we want the voices of children to be heard and then giving all these restrictions when it comes to, getting to interview them. But just a few things that I want to say that I think are important and can help ease the process, and things that being on this other side, I feel are very important to tell a journalist that will help. The first thing, just a few things, allow me, introduce yourself to the children, just so that they feel like they know you. Introduce the equipment, tell them this is a camera, this is a microphone, this is how it works. Children really like that, and they'll feel comfortable to talk to you. Make sure that they know they're being recorded and how their words are going to be used. So you tell them which media house you come from, which is their favorite program there. Just get them comfortable. A lot of the times, once you get that rapport, it will be very difficult for a child to say, no, I don't want to be interviewed. So don't just come with this, I'm from the city air. Just, come down and talk to them and befriend them. And you'll actually find that once you've befriended them, they'll give you really, really powerful stories. Also, just make sure in terms of durations of interview sessions, don't interview children under the age of 9 for longer than 30 minutes. for children between 10 and 14, don't interview them for more than 45 minutes, and teenagers don't interview them for more than an hour. Of course, for reasons, it could be a bit distressing. And also, when you're interviewing the children, just sit or stand at the same height as them so that you don't look like you're talking down to them. This also allows them to feel like they can connect with you. And also just make sure that your questions are very clear and straightforward. You wouldn't talk, you don't want to talk to children the same way you talk to an adult or to an expert. Just break down your questions to the most minute, simplest of questions, and make sure that they're clear and straightforward and they in no way mislead the child. And if a child is reluctant to answer a question, like Jenny said, please don't push them, just move on to the other question. Another thing that I want to really talk about is sometimes you can show the children the pictures that you've taken, just so that they're able, because we are sort of getting to we want to speak to their agency, you know, so can they see themselves how you have portrayed them in that instant. And I think it also helps in between, if maybe you work for a newspaper or a blog, or just to show them a bit about how you, so that they're able to understand the process. Even for video, if you just take a short cutaway or a b-roll of them doing something and showing to them, then they're able to understand, oh, this is how this happens. It really helps to get them speaking. Yeah, and do not take images that are really shocking. Once you show them the pictures, please look at their reaction. If they're excited, it's a good thing. If they're shocking, then of course, how is the subject responding to that clip? And of course, this also would be an indicator of how they want to be portrayed. Give them that agency of knowing, this is what I want to be portrayed and I'm happy with it. Another thing that I wanted to say, other things like showing children with too much cleavage, you know, wearing revealing clothing, having their private parts exposed, showing children doing, you know, showing aggressive behavior, such as, you know, throwing rocks at birds, running after, you know, just showing them as being aggressive. Maybe you could minimize on that, unless it's really playful. But if it's showing an aggressive behavior, half of the time it's important to not show it in that indication. Don't show children as powerless, passive, or dependent victims. Half of the time, I know the point I want to say next is endearing, but try not to show children in distress or crying. We want to show them as you know, empowered. We are empowering them in one way or another. So let's not show them as powerless, in distress or crying. Don't show a distorted reality, making a child look more vulnerable than they are. And also, this is something that Jenny said, but just to emphasize, if it's possible, don't share the child's last name, the community or the village, identifiable landmarks that can sort of indicate where they live, a school name or address, the uniform, specific medical conditions which could lead to stigmatization by the community. There's some pictures that have GPS coordinates, so maybe turn the camera's GPS software when you go into the field so that it doesn't show the child's location. Don't show the parents' place of employment, because that's counterproductive, hiding the child and showing the parents' place of work. And I know we talk about the right to a name, and there's a UN Convention on the Rights of Children that states that, you know, children have a right to their name. So we must always use their name. But like Jenny said, there are instances where identifying the child would put them at risk. So if it's in such instance, then you can conceal or hide their identity. And this in instances of like child marriage, FGM, teenage pregnancy, child trafficking, in anything that would, you know, after you leave, will put the children at risk. It's something that you would want to do for, you know, clicks or likes or, you know, a good story, but just think of the child that you leave behind in the community and ensure that you leave them as safe as you found them. Also, another thing that I want to say that I wished I did when I was a journalist is just going to the ground with someone who can sort of offer psychosocial support, because sometimes you get to speak to these children and they give you such harrowing experiences, and then you say, oh, thank you very much, and you close your your cameras and you switch off your equipment and off you go, and not realizing that you've actually, maybe for children who had actually buried such experiences or they were getting over it, just bringing them back to the fore for them, and then just leaving them hang without any support. It's something that I wish I'd done when I was a journalist, and it's something a challenge that I bring to you. If you're able to do it, maybe through organizations and such as Plan, ask them if they're able to get someone to accompany you just to offer psychosocial support. I think that would be great. And then something finally very important that Jenny has said that I want to re-emphasize: children can lie. They can just get carried away by the camera and just start spewing information that is irrelevant. How do you help with that? Making sure that you have a parent or a guardian present, or an adult who can be able to verify. Though sometimes, a disclaimer also, some of the parents or the guardians sort of train their children to spew lies. So if you're able to go with like a community leader while talking to the girl, just make sure that, or the child, that you're not alone, so that information can be verified, and also verification of the information that you get. Don't take it as 100. Just go to, if they've mentioned anyone, just try and verify the information that you receive, just so that you don't feel like you've aired a story and then there's some loopholes once the story is aired. Yeah, but generally, Jenny, I think that was very good representation of child sensitive reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. So I'm going to put myself in the chopping board. So any questions? I've seen, I don't know what's his name, Techno. I've seen Ibrahim. Anybody else? So we have like 3 questions, like between Evelyn and myself, and who else we can be able to respond to. Any other questions? And I say that if you're shy, you can go to the Q&A section and you can ask your question. And then we are moving to a very exciting session for you pitching your story to us. So I'll start with Techno. I don't know his name is, I don't know what his name is, but he's put it as his Techno. He can ask his question. I know he's a francophone, so he can ask his question. Komlan, are you able to help us translate his
Okay, who is the question from? Is it in the question?
So he has he's lifted his hand. So Techno something.
Okay, that is Sibel. Pouvez poser votre question, madame. Je pense que c'est Sibel.
Tell her to unmute.
Il me semble que vous êtes sur mute. Techno Spark. Hello? So madame Sibel de Techno Spark. Vous pouvez parler.
Okay, thank you, Komlan. Let's move to Ibrahim. Ibrahim, she's speaking now. Go ahead.
I think she wants to speak now. Vous pouvez parler. Vous pouvez poser votre question. On ne vous entend pas.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Okay, go on, Ibrahim.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Yes, Ibrahim.
You hear me? Merci. Je disais que je voudrais apporter un témoignage sur un enfant, par rapport à ce qu'elle a dit, sur la protection des enfants. Et souvent, il se passe des choses que les médias ne maîtrisent pas et dont les conséquences peuvent être très dramatiques pour les enfants. Cette année, on a noté au Sénégal une jeune fille qui était étudiante dans des écoles préparatoires, qui a délaissé, qui a fugué complètement, qui a mis en émoi tout le peuple sénégalais pendant des jours avant qu'elle ne réapparaisse. Simplement parce que lorsqu'elle était jeune fille, elle a été surmédiatisée parce qu'elle a été consacrée 2 années de suite durant la meilleure élève du Sénégal. C'était une histoire positive pour les jeunes filles, surtout pour les disciplines scientifiques. Mais malheureusement pour elle, elle n'a pas pu soutenir toute cette pression médiatique, mais également la pression des écoles préparatoires. Donc, souvent, les autorités instrumentalisent même des enfants sans s'en rendre compte, et les conséquences peuvent être très, très, très dramatiques pour les enfants. Donc, nous, journalistes également, c'est très souvent que nous sommes dans le feu de l'action, nous n'avons pas le temps de prendre du recul, mais il nous faut faire très, très, très attention par rapport aux enfants que nous médiatisons, même s'il s'agit d'histoires positives. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Brahima. I hope the translation, the translators, the interpreters have translated everything. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Do you need?
Thank you, Kamlan. So, any more questions? I can see your comments from the. I can see the questions. Any more comments? There's a question in French. Is it the one? There's an earlier one. Yeah. Okay, I've done that. Okay. Any other questions? Don't feel as if you are not allowed to speak. Any questions? Yes, Techno. You can go ahead and speak.
Oui. Vous me recevez? Allô?
Oui, on vous entend. On vous entend bien.
Okay. Je voudrais savoir,
Oui,
est-ce qu'il est possible d'avoir la version numérique de l'agenda en français? En français. Aussi, par rapport à la partie éthique in reporting, je voudrais savoir concrètement l'essentiel à retenir si possible, parce que je notais et je n'ai pas pu vraiment écouter l'interprète en français. Je n'ai vraiment pas bien suivi cette partie. Merci. Oh là là. Allô?
Allô, oui, on vous a entendu.
D'accord.
So Selam, I think we have the French version of the Agenda 2040 is available. So any more questions before we go to the next session? Selam, we can get the link?
Yes, I'm trying to send it in the chat box.
Okay.
I can send it now.
Okay. So the next session, I had requested you write your name and then you write which country you come from on your name, so that we can be able to identify you, because we want to hear if you during this session, like I think Maureen from Nigeria said she has a couple of story ideas. If you can tell us like some of the story ideas that you think you can write between today and 16th of June, you can tell us, and then we can help you get a source or something. So I'm waiting for, if you have any story, please lift up your hand. We'll let you speak and just tell us what is your story idea, and what kind of help do you require from us to be able to do that story. I'm waiting to see hands up. I'll start with Maureen because she had already put hers on the chat. Go ahead, Maureen.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking of writing on something on. I'm actually trying to coin the headline, but it's still kind of messy. The continuous attack on school and subsequent closure in Nigeria, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Malnutrition, that's one. Malnutrition and health challenges faced by children living in the IDP camp, and the inattentiveness of governments to these issues.
Thank you, Maureen. Anybody else? I'm going to check people who have not spoken. Deborah Mwania, do you have a story? I'm going to allow all of us to speak so that if you have a story, you can tell us. Angela?
My apologies. I'm an internal candidate. I'm an internal participant.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Godana Guyo, what story idea do you have? Dumi, yes? You can unmute yourself, Dumi. Dumi, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yes, my name is Dumim Kabela from South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm looking to do a story on education, rights to education, and I'm looking specifically on the quality of education. In South Africa, we have a situation where, in terms of the law and the constitution, children have a right to education, in particular primary education, and they do have access to it, most of them. However, like yesterday, I came across a situation where there are no fee schools where children don't pay for education. The first of the matter is the quality of education, especially for first not the same no fee schools versus those who are actually in paying school. And like yesterday, I came across a situation, I was proposing a business there, but then I came across a situation in terms of the government had instituted a system of teaching children IT skills, which is what I was proposing to do. I was looking forward to rent space to do a business on that. But in the process of communication with the school principal, he gave me information that apparently they have computers sitting around that they don't know what to do with. Basically, it's become a white elephant in the sense that the government had planned to do computer skills training for children. Now, it's been over a year or two now, that thing is not going on. In fact, the whole program has been disbanded. So now we have a situation where if I take a child, for example, in the townships in South Africa, if I take a child away from a township school, which are normally no-fee schools, to a town school, they are more likely to get all the facilities they want, all the facilities they need to support their education. In a no-fee paying school where the government pays for everything and the parents pay for nothing, it's an incentive on the government to decide what is there and what is not there, not the parents, even though there are school governing bodies who are supposed to be kind of like a board of directors with the principal and what goes into the schools. But because they don't have a financial input in the teaching of their children, then it's easy for people to just be dumped and then nobody takes care of that. So I'm looking that is an angle of a story that one can look at in terms of the quality of education. By law, children have freedom to go to school. They read the same curriculum and all those kind of things. But is the method of teaching similar? Is the exposure? In fact, the environment is not the same. Township schools and urban schools, not all urban schools, but suburban schools in particular, the campuses don't look the same. And the facilities are not similar. Even the quality of teachers is not the same. Teachers in private schools are not the same as teachers in public schools. In fact, the reason why there are even more private schools is because for those who want quality for children, they open a private school and then they teach children the way they want to teach them, or in the manner that they know they should be taught. In a public school, nobody monitors that. And now you have a situation where children from poorer communities, because there are no people who can pay for what they want, then they get the low level of education, even though by law it's supposed to be the same and equal. So that's what I'm looking to do that. Also, another thing that I've noticed is that there's an issue with stunting. Some children, they don't get the right nutrition. In South Africa, there's the welfare system where the government does provide for or aid the parents who are from poorer households to afford to take care of their children. But you have a situation now where they earn the grant, you find that it's the only source of income And because it's the only source of income, then you have problem with nutrition. And so you have children who are like having stunting as a problem. So those are the things that I'm looking at in terms of this Africa Fit for Children story.
Thank you, Dumi. I'm hoping Selam, Evelyn, and Komlan, the team here, are taking notes. So I'm going to hear from Edjegu. I hope I've not murdered your name. Edjegu.
Hello.
Okay, Lomarik, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I want to say thank you very much for this thematic, which is very, very interesting. But my problem, first of all, I want to say, I'm trying to listen what you are saying, but it's not only perfect at 100%, because I hope that in sometimes we can hear in French, because we in our country, we speak French in our country. So one participant to tell you when you finish, you can send the line or the projection, what am I going to say? This speech, we can have the speech in French. That one can help me to learn more, to understand what you are saying. Again, my question, last time, we know that now we are working about the agenda for Nations Unies 2030. So now my curiosity is to know the equivalence of the difference of this new agenda. If that one take care of the agenda 2030, which ends in 2030. So what is the partner? What we want to do? The actor of our actor of like a digital actor, what can we do exactly to take care of this problem, which day after day is very, very important? I have more example. I cannot take all the time to listen this example, but about the protection of child, that one is very, very important. So how can we face this problem in 2040? We can say in this year, oh, we have do good work. So thank you very much for the listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lumarik. Thank you. There is French interpretation, just in case. Edejegu, go ahead. Edejegu. Edejegu, we are waiting for you to speak. Okay. Judy Kihumba. Edjegu, are you able to speak?
Bonjour.
Yes, go ahead. We have French interpretation. You can go ahead and you listen. Go ahead. Okay. You need to unmute yourself.
Hello. Sorry.
Yes, go on, Judy.
You called me. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank all of you who have organized this. It's a great inspiration, and I've learned so much. I'm a sign language interpreter and an advocate of mental health for the deaf women. And for me, the reason I was joining is to learn more about the child protection, and mostly for the deaf children, because we rarely hear their voices, because as much as they can't speak for themselves, they still speak in sign language, and there's so much that happen around that is never reported. So for me, it was an eye-opener, especially on the story part, and I'm grateful. I think that's all I would say for here for now.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody else? Anyone else with comments? Okay. Thomas Bwire. Senator Jude. Kate Silale. Irene Shone. Go on, Jude. Senator Jude.
Okay, just to greet everyone and commend you for the delivery of the topics, even though I was multitasking at the same time. Yes, but I'm more motivated also to look at these issues that affect children. In Nigeria, just like Maureen have hinted, we have challenges of, already we have millions of out of school children in the country. And right now, this is added to kidnapping of small children. The latest was the kidnapping of toddlers, some 4-year-old kids for primary school. And it has led to closure of schools. This led to, before now, there was a singular issue that attracted global attention. That's the Chibok girls issue, led to the setting up of Safe School Initiative. But since then, I don't know why it is not effective. I think it's area I think I may look into. Then the child marriage is still a factor in some part of the country. So it's just opposite with child rights act. Because this is embedded in some cultural and religious practices, it becomes a lot difficult. But it's an issue also that I think I may look into. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Shadow, I hope that's how you pronounce your name. Shadow.
Yes. Thank you, first of all, for giving me this particular opportunity. Thank you for this particular training. It was very beneficial. I learned a lot. And I would like to ask a question about when it comes to parents, because when you come out airing, you come out airing children's issues, and an underage child, according to the Media Council of Kenya here in Kenya, you have to first of all to talk to the guardian so that the guardian can accept maybe for the child to communicate and give their part of the story. How do you deal with a situation where maybe the child is willing to talk, but the parent is not willing to talk? Is not willing, does not give the permission of the authority. You do talk to their child. How can you do that particular situation? Thank you. Hello?
So much, Evelyn, are you there? Are you able to respond to that question?
Yes.
Evelyn.
I'm here. That's a very interesting question. Because if a child is under the age of 18, then they are, we need the guardian to approve or accept for any sort of interviews. So I guess that's one of the situations where you're put between a rock and a hard place, because you cannot speak to an underage child without consent from the guardian, and I think that's just the law. So that brings a challenge, unless I think I'm just thinking now as a journalist, if you are able to just go around it and probably get another adult or someone who's over 18 who understands the plight of the said child and who can't speak, that would be a way around it. But I know if the guardian says no, then there's no way around that, unfortunately. So just getting other people who can speak to that. But then, yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yes, because first of all, because like for me, the story I was thinking about, there are parents who exploit their own children. You know, like in the streets of Nairobi, where I come from, you find that those children do not go to school. Their parents use them as beggars. They do the begging business, quote unquote, here in Nairobi. They send the children out there to go and beg in the streets so that they can get their money. You understand? So they don't take the children to school. And that parent cannot accept, the street family or the street woman cannot accept you to interview the child and talk about their business. You see, so that's a very huge challenge, and I would like to know how maybe I can go through it, how I can maybe I can overcome the obstacle.
I think in that situation, the issue is bigger than the case study, and you can do your story based on the issue. You know, using long cutaway shots of children who are with their parents on the streets, and then tackling the concern without necessarily having a child as a case study. That would be a viable way to go around it. And I think it's important to realize that you may think that because you're not allowing the child to speak and you're not giving them agency, you may think that you're not enhancing the agency, but you are, in a way, speaking also to the issues and to the challenges and to the roadblocks that inhibit children from achieving their ultimate goal or the greatest potential. Telling that story in itself is providing agency for the child. So there are instances where children speak, have agency to speak about their own issues. It's good if we give them the platform to do so. But there are instances like this one and many others where children are, are restricted in one way or another, or are, I want to use a Swahili word, but they're not given the proper spaces or they're not allowed to live, to be safe, to be secure. By us speaking to those challenges, we are indirectly giving them agency, and we are raising issues that, are directly impact them. And by telling that story, even if not through their own words, we are helping them in one way or another. So maybe just for you to, and for everyone to just broadly think about agency for children. It doesn't have to be direct all the time. It can be indirect. And that's where we now speak to your position as the media, as the fourth estate, to be able to be a watchdog, to be able to be a scrutinizer, and to be able to break such stories, and in essence, advocate for the children, even if they're not in a position to do so themselves. So speak to the issue, and I think it will have a better impact.
Okay, final question. Okay, when we are presenting these particular pitches of the stories, do they necessarily have to be focused on one, maybe visual, or is it audio, or any can do? So depending on maybe where you're coming from, the media house.
Any can do. It depends on where you're recording. We can't force you to do TV if you're a print person. So wherever you are, where you report, that's why we want to see, because we want as many stories for Agenda 2040 as possible. Yes, Ibrahim.
I'm sorry. Je n'ai pas demandé à parler. Hein. Je suis désolé. Je vais baisser la main.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibrahim. Thomas Wira, yes?
Hi, thank you so much, Jennifer. So for me, I would have loved to do especially because now I'm getting into photography, I would have loved to do attend photo story, especially like about children, but just focusing especially like on the way kids are not like the corona there has affected so many children like in the slums, because I work in a slum, and majority of them are not yet in school. They're still at home, and parents are still stuck with these children. So maybe if I can also get some guidance on how to go about this, that can be awesome for me. Thank you.
This thing might as well just be starting. Right, so that I don't know who else, because it's me and who else.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? So I think.
Sorry, I have a question. I don't.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's about the story I'm thinking about is how children born by deaf parents, the struggles they go through. But I've been wondering whether these stories, how we do it, do we do them in sign language as much as the children are hearing, and how should we present it in case the parents don't give a consent?
So as Evelyn said, if you don't get consent, you can't go ahead with the story, because consent is giving you permission to tell the story. So
okay.
For me, without consent, you cannot go ahead, because you're going to be, one, it's not in the best interest of the child.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Judy. Any more questions? As we are doing, please put out a training evaluation. Please respond to it to help us improve, because this is not a one-off. It's going to be a continuous thing we'll be doing. That's why we asked you for your contacts in the registration, so that we can contact you when you're doing this conversation. So at this moment, I'm going to start.
Jenny, sorry, can I say something real quick regarding the last question?
Actually, I was going
sorry.
to make
No, I just wanted to say something with regard to that question. That sometimes the fact that a guardian does not give consent does not mean that it's in the best interest of a child. Just like we've discussed, there's some guardians or parents who actually exploit their children, or keep their children in situations or in circumstances that they would rather not have illuminated or addressed. So if a guardian or a parent says no, does not give consent, you don't just say, okay, they've said no, end of the story. If the story is bigger than the consent, then you find other ways to tell the stories. And that's what I was saying earlier. Are you able to talk about the issue? And like, how else can you help the child? Because there are instances where clearly the child would want to talk, but the parent or the guardian is inhibiting it. So it's not in the best interest. So find other ways to which you can tell. And also, that's when now you get people like technical experts to speak to the numbers, speak to organizations that have done research on such an issue, and use those to be able to tell the story. And sometimes when you actually illuminate a story, you do get case studies. People reach out to you, they call the newsroom and say, hey, the issue you talked about in last evenings, or the morning news, was something that's happening to so and so, and we are willing to speak. And you find that because you illuminated that issue, then you now get the case studies you need to follow up the story. So don't feel like because you haven't gotten consent for a case study, then the story is as good as dead. Half of the time it's just the tip of the iceberg, and you could just be unearthing something greater. So I think it's not the element of not giving up until the story is done should be implemented. Jenny.
Thank you, Evelyn. So as we close up, I'm going to call upon Comlan to give closing remarks. And I'm not sure if Felisa is still with us. Feli, are you still with us? I don't think she's not here. So Comlan, you're going to give us closing remarks. I was looking for someone from Waka. If there's someone from Plan Waka, please lift up your hand. Maybe you joined the participants. Someone from Plan International West Africa.
Okay, can I start?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you for having organized this, and Worksoft is really pleased to having participated into the organizing activities to help to mobilize the West Africa side of the participants. So we would like to thank Plan International for the support for this training to happen. We would like to congratulate also the journalists that participated to this training, because this is a big opportunity to have more different tools, legal tools, and to have a better and deep understanding of this Agenda 2040. And so you can have a good advocacy and help the civil on what is going on as far as child protection is concerned. So Worksoft, being the umbrella of all the civil society organizations in West Africa, is really thankful for this participation. And we are inviting you for the upcoming activities that will be organized, Worksoft CSO Forum. We'll make sure that we mobilize the West African participants to have a great participation and to have a main purpose of protecting children in our region. We want to make Africa a continent that is fit for children and for human beings. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à tous les participants. Merci pour votre dynamisme et merci pour toutes les questions que vous avez posées. Nous sommes très heureux, le FOSCAO est très heureux d'avoir participé à l'organisation de cette activité et nous sommes contents que vous soyez présents à cette rencontre. Un grand merci à vous et passez une excellente journée. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate, and we hope to see you. We have several events lined up for this week. So we have an event on 10th of June, that is on Thursday. We hope to see you participate. I'm going to send out the link after this meeting. We're going to have an intergenerational dialogue on Agenda 2040. So we're going to have different people speaking from different generations, including children, speaking about the implementation of Agenda 2040. And then on 12th of June, that's on Saturday, we're going to have a children's forum. Unfortunately, this one we cannot share the link, so you will, for safeguarding purposes. So this one you will join on YouTube and on Facebook, so that you can be able to follow up and hear what children are saying concerning the implementation of Agenda 2040 in their countries. And then on 15th of June, we have a high level panel, okay, of experts discussing on the implementation and what next after the Agenda 2040. And then on 16th, we have the continental commemoration from 12 p.m. South African time. So to be live on the African Committee of Experts Facebook pages, and so you can be able to join in. But anyway, the rest of Africa, every country will be celebrating the Day of the African Child. So we've left out our contacts. If you need any information, any leads, you need to interview someone, please do reach out to us and we'll be able to connect you to the right person. And please don't hesitate. We'll be waiting. I've left out an email. Please, we'll be waiting for your story ideas. As I said, we want to support 2 stories per region, like 2 from East Africa, 2 from South Africa, 2 from Central Africa, 2 from West Africa, and 2 from North Africa. So if you send us your story ideas, we'll contact you and we'll tell you, and that this should be before Friday, so that because we need that story up by maybe Monday or Tuesday. So we will be contacting you to tell you if you have been the one who has for doing that story. I want to say thank you so much. Again, please send your story ideas. I've left the email in the chat box. I've left the email in the chat box. So, so there is the French version and the English version. Let me look for the English version. Please send your story ideas here.
All right.
Please send them. If you can send them today, I'll be very, very happy because it will give me more time to look at them, myself and Evelyn. So, but thank you so much for participating. We really do appreciate. A lot of you did join in, and we do appreciate. God bless you, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.